Um, are we back? I don't know why this happens. This has happened before. Where like my stream just drops and I have to restart it. Um, this is why we don't. Well, yeah. Uh, are we back? We should be. Yeah. Okay. I can't imagine. People will have to find the new video. But let's see here. Okay, we're so back. Okay. Thanks for bearing with me. Um, okay, we back. Very nice, very nice, very nice. Okay, we're just gonna roll along. So I don't know where I cut off, so I'll just restart with top of round eight. We're against Jai, playing Lad against Hollow Man Asa. Yeah, there's not too much like that I can identify that I feel like I did wrong here. Um, there was like I drew well, like I opened Anacam Dirty Laundry, I'm pretty sure. We got like decent draw, I felt. Yeah. And Jai drew like a lot of agendas, which worked out really well for him. Because like I play a more passive game. So like I sniffed out some things, but like there was like a time where like Jai installed two agendas in two different remotes, and installed one behind installed a Nico campaign behind a brand, and I ran the Nico campaign, left the other two cards, and then he like scored one. He already had a Luminal scored, and then he like scored the other one off the table, and then we lost to Biotic. Um, yeah, so like that's unfortunate. Like I think he drew like 6 out of 9 agendas. He drew 6 out of 9 agendas in the top half of the deck, which is something that I was just like not playing around. Um, and yeah, like I just like wasn't quite going fast enough in this game. Um, yeah, that's about it. Like I think there were moments where maybe I could have made a run that I didn't, but like my breaker situation wasn't ideal because I remember I had like a barrier breaker and I just like was lacking a Kogi breaker, I think. So like it was hard for me to make aggressive runs on unknown ice, because I was lacking a certain breaker type that I don't like. It was either a Kogate or a Sentry. Um, you had a really sick read on the overclock on the Spin Skunk server. Yeah, yeah. Like there was some good moments in there. Like as I said, like I think I played well. But like you can play well and you won't win all your games. And I think this was like one of those games. Where it was like I think like things were going well. Like I think I played well and the game didn't go my way, which is like that's okay. That happens. Um, Sniffing out the Ikawa after. Yeah, Jai made a play that I like figured out pretty early on in the game. Okay, round nine. Round nine. So I've lost my first game. We're up against Santa, and you'll see this matchup 2 more times in this tournament. This exact matchup. So I am running against Santa's Egg Infusion. This game I like. Like I kind of like luck was like pretty on my side here. I like an early Dirty Laundry on R&D stole me a Nisei, and then Santa goes and scores an Off-World because he didn't find a Nisei, and then I later on go for like he tries to like block me out of deep diving, and he's drawn all his barriers. So he's drawn like 2 brands, 2 border controls, and a bunch of tattoos. But I do have my turbine and propeller rig set up, but I just like I can't like run through a brand, pay 2 counters, and then not like do anything with that run. Like that's not good for me. And he just like found enough ice to kind of like make me run through something, boot me into the remote, make me run something, boot me into the remote. And I only found Hannah, and I didn't find my DJ into Sable. So like with only one extra click gain, it was hard. And I kind of like went into like a state of, instead of aggressively going for a one deep dive play, like for like a deep dive only steal one play, I decided to like wait him out a little bit and see if he just like, because like there's no way you're gonna boot me every turn. But turns out that's what he did. And I end up like not being able to deep dive that game. So I like get a trick shot in. Like we're basically now like in the state where we're just like running R&D for single accesses. But I send a message off the top. Game goes on a little bit, and then and then I eventually like find another Nisei off the top. So I like win off of R&D accesses. Like I got a good number of them. So it wasn't like you know, I wasn't like really grasping at straws. But like it did kind of stop me from deep diving because like there was enough just trashing your ice to egg infusion kind of kept him going, which was surprising to me that something like that worked as well as it did. I mean, it didn't work, but like it worked at stopping the deep dive, which I felt like it wouldn't be able to sustain. Yeah, and the early Nisei was a big deal. Like finding the Nisei out of R&D instead of slipping it into HQ, like he would have scored it, like things would have gone a different way. So that was how that game went. Jai says, I'm curious as to your read on the lat egg matchup. I think, so in my practice, the lat egg matchup is good for the lat. As long as the lat knows how to play the matchup. And it's difficult. There are a lot of different lines you can take. So you can play aggressively and stop the egg infusion from getting money. So trashing their, like pinholing their Charlottes, running their Charlottes, making early runs, that can work really well. However, if they draw a lot of Charlottes and draw a lot of Rashidas, that's not going to work well for you. Another key thing, and I'm gonna like, when I post my deck list write up, I'm also gonna post my notes that I have for my Corp and my runner deck. And for my runner deck, I have a section of notes that are just about the egg matchup. And there's like a couple like very key details that you have to observe in that matchup. So one example being, don't let them res an ice on a central if you don't have to, because your ability to contest the remote is actually really good because your breakers are very efficient, right? Your Kogate breaker is efficient into Thimble Rig and maybe Vampy. Your barrier breaker is very efficient into Bran and all their 1-strength barriers, and your sentry breaker is really efficient into all their sentries. So, like, you can get in. It's just a matter of, like, how many times you can get in. And if you allow them to res an ice on HQ, R&D, or Archives on the outermost position, you might run into situations where you want to run in the remote later, and you're going to get booped into that outermost ice, and you're going to have to deal with it. So that's a very key thing about playing against Egg is, like, don't let them res that ice. You want to play your overclocks first, and then like be conservative with playing your trick shots. And then like when push comes to shove, like you're going to be able to let deep dive as long as you find your click gain. Like agenda, like if you have pressured the remote well enough, agenda density on HQ and R&D is going to be high. So trick shot seeing 2 should steal you an agenda. You can also, Cupulation is really important. Like you can pick up a card with Cupulation and see 3 out of HQ. That'll also probably steal you an agenda. So the agendas do come because like density and centrals get really high. So I have found that matchup to be pretty lat favored. Yeah. Definition of insanity. We looped that turn sequence like 3 or 4 times. Yeah, like 3. Like I like. It was like click 1, run R&D, boop you to the remote. Okay, click for 3, pass. Next turn, run R&D, boop you to the remote. Yeah. I thought you'd take a turn to really posture the dive so Charlie would commit the Nisei. Yeah, I think like so what happened in that game was like Charlie scored an off-world and then scored an Nisei, and then I think once he scored the Nisei, like he was so committed to stopping the deep dive that I was like, this is just not going to work. Because if I run and we like lose a click to the Egg Infusion ability, lose a click to the Nisei, like we're not going to be able to deep dive. Not unless I draw DJ Sable in addition to the wheels that I already found. So, and then that's when I pivoted my plan to we're just going to get singles out of R&D. Yeah. My experience contesting remote econ has been kind of mixed though. Yeah, it is like, it can be a little mixed. Yeah. I think it's as close to 50-50 as you can get. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. It comes down to like a little like individual player skill and your ability to pick up on situations. Situations of each individual game. Okay, round 10. Round 10, we got back against Jai. Jai completes the sweep and beats Built to Last with Lat. Now, again, throughout this tournament, I'm learning as Built to Last the best way to play against Lat. And I guess like this was my error that I didn't properly work this out before coming into the tournament, and I really should have. And I thought I had a good understanding of it, but I didn't. And so, like, to jump to the chase, the conclusion is, against the aggressive decks that are trying to attack you, so the Anarch decks that are playing Leech, you can keep a passive hand and just, like, mess the Chestful R&D, Winchester HQ, Hoard'em Archives, click for credits and advanced stuff, and play slow. And that's, like, a game-winning game plan. Against Lat can sit with you. So if you play defensively and they like just play for their value cards, set up their board, get their Lat draw, set up their stuff, get their rig up, like you're gonna come out of that situation down. So I didn't quite appreciate how necessary like getting wall-to-wall going and getting wall-to-wall triggers was, but it was really necessary because it turns out in the late game against Lat, like you need to get your high strength barriers. You need to get your high strength tree line, high strength logjam. So if you don't have wall to wall running, having to manually advance is just too slow. It's too expensive, costs you too many clicks. So in the game against Jai, right. Okay, so this is what happened against Jai. So I kept a hand against Jai that, like, I don't remember exactly what the ice I drew was, but I drew my Crisium Grid and all of my Bio Vaults. And that's good, right? You're against the deep dive deck, you've got your end the run deep dive tech, and that's good. But the problem that I ran into was I didn't find a big barrier. And I wasn't able to wall it up. So I don't remember which one it was, but I'm pretty sure I just like didn't find either. So yeah, it definitely was. Like it was definitely neither. So I found like my Mests, I found my Winchesters, I found my Hoard'ems. But we didn't draw a logjam. We didn't draw a tree line. If we did, we weren't really able to get it going. And we like didn't get a wall-to-wall going. So the problem was I had all this stuff that forced you to run multiple times. So Crisium Grid and Bio Vault, but I didn't have like a taxing thing that really mattered. Jai's reminding me here saying you had Messney R&D, Winchester HQ, Logjam Remote. Yeah, so like I found my first Logjam goes in the remote, didn't get a second Logjam, but I remember that I didn't get wall-to-wall. And the importance of getting a scaling piece of ice, which could be Colossus, right? The importance of getting a scaling piece of ice plus wall-to-wall was really highlighted in this game because I didn't get that, all of the Bio Vaults and the Crisium Grids, even though they showed up, they were not that good because each run that you had to make to defuse that was not actually that taxing. So that's what lost me this game. Was like, I didn't open wall to wall, and against Lat, I really need to. So that was that. And again, like this is really all building up to my final game against D, which is really, really interesting. So that was this game. I lost this game, and I was like, okay, what happened here? We drew our Biovaults, drew our Crisium Grids, didn't get a taxing ice. Like the remote was taxing, but the centrals were not. And what I really need to do is get like a big ice on R&D that like when you run, we're going to Biovault it. We have a designated Biovault server that's taxing. Okay. So London says, I think no Pharaohs hurts the Lat matchup. It does. So no Pharaohs, it does. Like, Pharaohs is like something you want against Lat. Pharaohs is something you want, but the problem is like, you just can't play Pharaohs and Logjam. It's just like hard to justify that, I feel. Cause you have like a lot of other like good ice options. Unless you want to start cutting like Hortums. Yeah. And the Logjam's like, just like beating Biovault or beating Boomerang and being better against Botulus is like a huge deal in those matchups. And again, like I was expecting a lot more like Anarchs than showed up, I think. So it was like a little bit of a misread on my part, you could say. Okay, and then final round of day one, we're up against CTZ. This is a solid game. I've practiced against R+ a lot. The R+ Lat matchup is heavily Lat favored. But like, it's also really scary to play. But for those who are interested, this like, if as Lat, if you rip through your deck and you ignore the Corp and you let them score and you install your Stone Chips and your Anacam and you get your stuff set up and you get your Hannah ideally. But yeah, like all like Hannah, DJ Sable, Stone Chips, Anacam, and then you start interacting. It means that like they can't get value off of their oppos early, and then also, yeah, like all of the NBN decks, like you have to play like real 2-pointers in the form of Beal or like Headline or like Orbital Superiority, or like most of them are playing Degree Mills. So like you got a lot of real agendas in there. You got a small deck and land a deep dive. You can win. Don't be scared of false lead as Lat. Okay, if you're not playing Lat, be scared of false lead. But like as Lat, you actually don't need to be scared of false lead. And the threat that the Corp is actually posing you is that they're going to score out. And from my experience, it's actually really like slow for the Corp to score out. So that's like the game plan going into R+. I practiced it a ton because I was expecting R+ to also be a thing. Like, yeah, I was expecting R+ to potentially be a thing. And this was a matchup that I practiced a lot. And like I carried this plan out to a T in this matchup, where CTZ goes install 3, and I go draw a card, like gamble Stone Chip Creative, pass, and then he goes score false lead. And I think a lot of times, like people who are playing the R+ are like score false lead, win rate just went way up, and most of the time it does. But like against like you spend 3 clicks and 3 credits to score a point, and if that point doesn't kill me, then it's a point, and that's really like what I'm going for here. It's a really like scary way of playing this matchup because it feels like a lot can go wrong, and it can, but like you're asking a lot on the R+, because the R+ needs to draw agendas that they want to score, and they also need to go about scoring them and have the money to back it up in case you decide to interact. And that's actually like really expensive, and they have to have their regolith. I think everyone collectively expected more Crew Anarch than actually showed up. Yeah, that's like unfortunate. Turns out no one discovered any secret tech. Yeah. I would have liked to see more Crew Hosh, but the deck just couldn't quite get there consistently. Yeah, it's so sad. I really wanted to see that. Like my Corp was so good against it. Yeah. Okay, so that's the R+ matchup. Yeah. We had a solid game, solid round 11, solid win. So at the end of day one, that's the end of day one. I've won all of my games except I've got swept by Jai, so I'm 9-2, which is great. So get this. So we're 9-2, and in the last 3 rounds, I need 1 win to get in. 1 win to get in the last 3 rounds. And if I win in round 12 or in round 13, then I get to be top half of cut. If I lose, and then win round 14, then I'll probably be in the bottom half of the cut. And that's important because if you're the top half of the cut, you get side choice in the first round. So yeah, we're 9-2, going to the first round of day 2. Now, going into this round, there was 5 players that I could play against. There was because of side bias. Okay. Was it 5 or was it 4? It might have been 4, actually. Yeah, it was 4. Okay, so I could play against Arizan, which was playing Arasana, Rotom playing Lat, Tak playing Lat, or Zinchling playing Lat. So I had a 3 out of 4 chance to play against Lat, and I had a 1 in 4 chance to play against Ari. So it turns out, so like I didn't know like the exact details of these Lat decks. Okay. So in fact, I really didn't know anything about the Lat decks. The Ari deck, because Alex is from my meta, and Alex has been playing the Arasana deck for the longest time. So I know it's a deep dive Arasana deck, but that's like all I know. Yeah, that's all I know. It feels so fragile to me, so dependent on early fetch work. Lat deck interacts as much as it wants to, no more, no less. Yeah, exactly. You really need to clear Regolith early or get a Rashido IDL. Yeah, exactly, to get the money. We wouldn't have been on the Lat matchup because we already played, but still. Oh, right. Yes, yeah, no, that's right. No, Zinchling, you're totally right. It was 4 because D versus Jai was locked. Well, yeah, like I couldn't play against D or Jai. D because of side bias, and Jai because I already played against Jai. So maybe it was actually, yeah, I already played against Zinchling. What happened here? Was there somebody else? No, that was it. Okay, never mind. So I could play against Tak, Rotom, or Arizan. And again, like, I knew that Alex was playing Deep Dive Ari, but I actually, I didn't know, like, the exact specifics of his list. I didn't know exactly what breakers he was on, whether he's on Hush or not. I know that there's a Botulus and a Spree in there, but that's it. Like, it was very, surface level information. So I played it in the way that I was expecting to have to play against Arasana, which was wrong. But, it'd be interesting, because I don't actually know how the game goes if I take a different approach. But basically, in this game, I rush out a wall-to-wall, I find my tree lines, and I find, 2 tree lines and a log jam, and we get all that on a remote. And I'm just I need to rush for Clearinghouse, because if this game goes late, I'm going to lose. And turns out Alex's approach to this matchup was, I need to rush for Deep Dive, because if this game goes late, I'm going to lose. So we were both trying to rush each other when, it turns out that I maybe didn't need to do that, and I could have played more defensively, and he might have ran into me a lot more, and things maybe would have gone differently. But I got a strong remote set up, and then we got Clearinghouse in hand, and the Clearinghouse was going to go in the remote. And I decided to wait one more turn, and really that was a mistake, because there was a turn where Alex triggered an environmental testing and installed a propeller, and it could have been a turn where he comes in burners, and I was just we're just gonna risk one more turn, hope he doesn't have burner, because if he burners the Clearinghouse to the bottom of my deck, things get really hard all of a sudden, which is what happened. But I could have very easily put the Clearinghouse in the remote one turn earlier, and then the Clearinghouse would have been there, and I think the game would have gone differently. because he doesn't play Pinhole. So and if you do, you play one. I don't remember, but like you wouldn't expect Pinhole out of Ari anyways, because they have a lot of other stuff that they want their influence on. So like that was like a misplay there. Is I should have put the clearinghouse in the remote a turn earlier, and I chose not to. So he comes, he burners, and he sees exactly the clearinghouse and an agenda. So he puts the clearinghouse on the bottom, puts the agenda on top, and a cam draws into a muse, which he told me about afterwards. So he runs R&D, I res Hortum, breaks the Hortum with Entangler, which he got off the muse, which he just found, gets into R&D, gets into archives, deep dives, find another agenda. And I like... That was a big deal, because in this game, he did have to spend propeller counters to get into HQ. So, like, if I put the clearinghouse in the remote earlier, or if the muse doesn't get top decked, like, the game goes really differently. Because if we're gonna try to deep dive later, we're gonna have to run back into HQ later. So that was like two big things that happened in that game. Let me catch up on chat before I keep going. Thoughts on Treeline and Egg? Influence is weird. Yeah, that Treeline and Egg can't be worth it. Unless you're trying to advance a piece of ice. Like, unless you're trying to, like, are you trying to expend it for something? You'd have to get, like, that synergy there. I heard Jono, who wrote this SSS code, say that for large tournaments, Cobra prioritizes score over side balance when matching, by the way. Oh, okay. Interesting. I do think your previous favorite if I don't find early pinholes to shut down wall-to-wall is cheap. Not having the hush changes the matchup heavily. It does, yeah. I have 2 pinholes, but 2 and 50. Yeah, okay. Before this game, I told Alex that I thought he was the only runner in contention who was favored into your corp, and then he told me he didn't have the hush. I woke up in a cold sweat on Saturday morning thinking about putting hush in lat and going to 48, no lie. Oh, yeah? It took a Discord call intervention to stop me. Ruben was running Treeline and Egg? Oh, really? I didn't know that. Really? That's surprising. Tiebreakers cooked Treeline Egg. It's honestly okay. But for this point, we were on Aesop's. So it didn't matter about Cobra's pairing preferences, but that was why we switched to Aesop's. Ah. Right. Okay, so Alex finds 6 points. I've lost my clearinghouse. So, like, things are looking grim from that one turn. Like, things are looking really well for me. Like, clearinghouse was there, but, like, yeah. Losing, like, I think if Alex steals 6 points and I keep the clearinghouse on the burner, like, actually, if I had kept the clearinghouse on the burner, I'd probably win that game. Because what happened after the deep dive was I went and installed double advanced an agenda in the remote. And then the turn after I got greedy. So Alex goes and like botulisses the ice, runs in, bounces off something. And I've like spent a bunch of money. And I have exactly 3 credits. And I could triple advance and score the SDS and kill the botulus. Or I could install single advance NGO friend and put a 3rd advancement on the remote on the agenda, and the thinking was like I'm gonna bet on him not having the ability to get in, and if he does, I'm gonna like bet on him not having enough money to trash clearinghouse after, such that he wouldn't make the run. And in exchange, I'm gonna like stay on tempo. So I'm gonna like pop NGO, double advanced score, install wall-to-wall. And we're not going to waste any clicks. Because in the other world, I go triple advanced score, go to 0. And then the next turn, I'm going to have to click for 2 credits and install wall-to-wall. Which is like, you don't want to like, clicking for 2 credits is just slow. You want to avoid clicking for credits if you can. And it turns out that like, so like, basically what happens is he ends up running, he gets some money, installs Muse for Gauss, and like Gausses his way in and accesses the agenda with less than 3 credits, which is like basically like I was hoping that he would respect the possibility that it was clearinghouse, and he didn't. So then I ended up losing the game. So if the burner didn't hit clearinghouse and the clearinghouse went into the remote, which it would have if I still had it in hand, then like if he makes that same run, like because maybe burner and clearinghouse decreases the chances that clearinghouse is in the remote, so that may have informed his decision to make that run. But had he made that same run and he accessed clearinghouse and wasn't able to trash it, I would have probably won from there. So there was that. And then like also like I guess like at the end of the day, in hindsight, I could have just scored. And if I scored and I shot the Botulus and next time we go credit install wall to wall, that's fine. Like I guess I was greedy because I felt behind, and I guess I wasn't behind. Because again, I was playing under the assumption that he had Hush. And I was also playing under the assumption that like there were real breakers, but there wasn't, because like Gauss is like a 1-turn breaker. So under those assumptions is why I like had to take higher risk lines, and it turns out I didn't need to take higher risk lines, and that ended up being a big deal in that game. Yeah, so that was interesting, but it was like, you know, the burner like he had the cards he needed, made the run that he needed to make. The burner hit the clearinghouse. We lost the clearinghouse. Didn't find the second one. And from there, like that game was already lost. So like, that's fine. Lost that. Like win a game and ID twice would have gotten me there. But like now, like we still have 2 opportunities to win a game. So it's okay. Has my opinion about burner and lat changed at all? No, it hasn't. Burner is a tech card. Like if there's like a certain very specific thing that you're trying to burner, then play it. Like I don't know, like wage worker mad ace, wage worker mad ob end of the line is like very popular, then maybe you put burners in your deck for that. I seem to care about the clearinghouse getting shuffled. That didn't feel like a bluff. Fair enough. That's true. But then we like deep dived, and then like I could have top decked it. But that's true. You're really struggling to find an example of when to use burner. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like it needs to be a very specific thing. Like I think like burnering for value is like I tried doing that at the very start, and like it didn't seem very valuable to me, because you were spending a click and a credit and a card to run HQ and then do all of that stuff, and like the basic action of running HQ for a click and not a card and not a credit, just like that difference in value just didn't seem worth a card to me. So it needs to be like a very specific thing you're targeting, I feel. I'm not a great lap player, but I think it's hilarious how much division there is on this. Yeah. There is like, I mean, burners, I don't know, like, like the other thing is like, at the end of the day, like burner requires you to do a very specific thing. Like burner, like if we side tangent and look at this, like burner says make a run on HQ, and if successful, do something. And that like, if running HQ is bad value, like if we have a taxing ice on HQ that you don't want to run through, then like burner is not going to do anything. Like then it comes down to a weighing of that value of like, is the amount that I'm paying to play this burner worth burner's ability? And none of the other cards in here are like that. Like you could, like Trick Shot places money on it and gives you an extra access and runs a remote. So like there's just like it's just like very clear what the value of this card is. So it does require you to run R&D, but like the value of this card is immediately clear in the sense that my breakers cost money to use, SMC costs money to use. We can convert this value into something that is good for me. Sometimes burner just like doesn't do anything because like the corp doesn't have like really important cards in their hand. And yeah, you can like put those cards back on top of R&D, so they have to spend 2 clicks drawing it. So like you spent a click and a credit to break through the HQ ice, so then the corp has to spend 2 clicks. Like sometimes that'll happen, but like if you look at the other cards, like Laundry can be played anywhere. Like Overclock can be played anywhere. Pinhole Threading can be played anywhere. And like all these cards are like flexible, and like burner kind of like makes you do something specific. So it's just like more fun in my mind to like just like play cards that don't require you to do certain things. Okay. Burner felt like one of the best and most important cards in my RE deck. The breakers' tricks to get in are so consumable. It gets much more value on the deep dive turns. Yeah, I can see that. But it's like, yeah, it's like another card that like if your deck is like focused on deep dive and you're always gonna run HQ, then the burner just like getting a little bit more value is good. But also just like access. if you're pressuring the corp enough that like agendas are piling up in HQ, you can just like access HQ and steal. And Alex says also I don't have Cupulation. Like Cupulation is also like good HQ pressure. And Lad is already pre-tech to deal with the majority of corp. Yeah. Burner, I believe, has now won as many worlds as Information Sifting, both of which have won more worlds than Diversion. Lat wants his cards to be as easy to play as possible. Burner is awkward because it clogs your hand and usually turns off your ability. Yeah, exactly. Timmy's nailed it. Almost like he didn't take a break from the game. I played CBI Raid in Draft on Friday. Burner is much better. Yeah. CBI Raid is a funny card. I don't like being tied down. Exactly. Okay. So we lost round 12. Go to round 13. I'm like, we can win one game. And we go to round 13, and we're up against. Okay, so hang on. So, but before we go about this, like at the end of round 11, like end of round 11 was end of day 1, and there was a cut at this point, right? You could only progress to day 2 if you had 7 wins. So everybody that only got 6 wins, or everybody who didn't get 7 wins, were eliminated. And there was a lot of heartbreak at this point. Yeah, like there were so like I'm not gonna name certain players, but like there were so many players who like were like had very high hopes, who like rightfully like they were like really strong players. Like I'm sure they prepared a ton, and you could see it in the room on a lot of people's faces that like they were heartbroken at the end of round 11, at the end of day 1. A lot of people a lot of really, really good players who like, there was a lot of players who could have like made the cut and nobody would have been surprised who got eliminated at this point. And it was like, and this was like maybe it was the case that this happened in 2022 and 2023 to the same extent, and I just didn't notice. But like, I noticed it very clearly this year compared to the last 2 years. That was a thing in the room at this point in the tournament where you could feel the energy in a lot of people and a lot of people in the room, that they like had really high hopes for themselves, to do well, and as I said, like rightfully, and like there was a lot of heartbreak at the end of this round. And similarly in round 12, 13, and 14 as well, like people knew that you need 10 wins and 4 losses to bubble into the cut. So if you lost your 5th game, then you were out. And I could like, again, like you could see that, going into all of these rounds in day 2 as well. Catching up a bit. Tim, you played 3x burner in your Isla though. Yeah. Netrunner players are getting better at an unsustainable rate. That's so true. Yeah. Netrunner players are getting better at an unsustainable rate. That's like exactly what I want to say. It's like, it's so true. Like there's like, players are getting better at a rate that is so much faster than it felt like the last couple years. Shout out to Hams who legworked into 3 out of 6 agendas and missed all of them. What? Oh no. Oh no. Maybe I'll hear about this from him tonight. I don't know if Ryan's going to go to the New West meetup tonight, but I have a soccer game tonight in New West. So I'm going to go out to New West to play soccer, and then I'll probably show up at the meetup like at like 10:30 or something like that. And maybe yeah, man. Okay. I'll ask him about that one. Jeez. My emotional balance was extremely delicately balanced on the weekend. Yeah. The 6-4 tables at the end of day 2 were intense. Yeah, they were intense. Yeah. And I, like, as I said, like, I remember walking around the room and, like, seeing people sat at their tables. And yeah, like, just complete heartbreak at the end of day 1. Yeah. So, okay. Talked about round 12. Round 13. Round 13, we're against Nick Ride. And I've played against Neil at least twice before. At least twice. I want to say more than that, but at least twice. Once in New York City in person, and once in the North American Continentals. I think it was round 1. And yeah, once in new SOS and once at something online. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you were the 419 opponent that I played against round 1 when I was playing ASA. You were playing 419 in round 1 of the North American Continentals, and like great player. Like he's like, yeah. For like I love, like, you're in the chat. Like I love your attitude going into games. Like you're like constantly looking to improve. Like you're on a secret unknown testing team that has risen up this tournament. So for those who don't know what I'm talking about, there's a testing team that is unnamed testing team. Maybe there's a name now that Nick Ride you can share in the chat, but I believe it's like Nick Ride, Tak, Zinchling, Timmy Wong. That's the 4 that I know off the top of my head. And you guys had been preparing, and the person who did the best gets to name the group or something like that. And this team came up with this ASA deck, which is the version that Nick Ride played and the version that Zinchling played had like slight differences. But the core of the idea was that we have an agenda suite that is 3 Equal Project, 1 Send a Message, and we got 4 3/2s. So that's 3 Vitruvius, 1 Luminal. And we have MCA austerity policy, and we're trying to recur this MCA, and we're going to like be really annoying to these shaper decks who are trying to deep dive. We're going to click MCA a ton. And there's like a really strong fast advance, never advance plan with wage workers and just like 3/2s off the board. And there's an audacity in there, which lets you fast advance your 3/2s. It lets you triple advance wage workers click and score your 5/3s with seamless or with audacity. Like some really, really strong threats, and really strong deck that they came up with at this event. I'm going to catch up on chat before I keep going. The field felt much tighter this year than last, definitely. IDing with you round 11 was maybe the hardest non-play decision I've ever made at a tournament. Very glad I did dinner with the tiebreakers. Was lovely. Man, that sounds fun. We've been announced as Logic Bomb now. Okay. Check out our jukebox deck list for more of the story. All right, Logic Bomb was great. My write up is still gonna call y'all UWCTG. Okay, don't know what that one is. Maybe Jai will explain the acronym. Nick Wright also had a little cheerleader squad of non-players, which is very cool. Oh, okay, yeah, very cool. So, okay, so that's the Asa deck, right? We're trying to make you lose clicks. And we're like trying to establish a ton of threats on the board and like overwhelm these shapers. And I got wrecked this round, like completely destroyed. I think turn one was I did as well as I could. Turn one from the corp was like install res MCA, Asa install an ice, install Nico campaign in a new remote, click the MCA. And I go and run the Nico campaign, trash the Nico campaign, which was a key moment, or at least it should be. But I didn't get Anacam, so like when I'm losing a click every turn, especially from the very first turn of the game, like I need to have Anacam and I need to be like getting lat draws because I'm just gonna lose out on tempo here, which is what happened. Like didn't get Anacam. Like the econ was just like a little bit sus without the Anacam. And yeah, like he just like clicked MCA every single turn. Like we played maybe, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 turns of Netrunner, and I had 3 clicks on every turn except one. I think I had 4 clicks on one turn. But there was also like a turn or two where I had 2 clicks on that turn. Where you go like click the MCA, gain the clicks off it, install a new one, click a new MCA. So like, yeah. And there was a moment in that game where like he goes and clicks MCA and installs like 2 cards in a remote. And I'm like, that is Ikawa Project and Skunkworks. And there's nothing I can do about it. That's what it is. I know what it is. I don't even need to run it to know. Like, I can read this play, like, very, very, very clearly, but there's just nothing I can do about it. I don't have breakers. I don't have clicks. I don't have money. We just can't get in there. So then he goes and he scores as Ikawa Project. I ask at the end to see if it's Skunkworks, and it was. And yeah, like, there's like, that's really it. Like, I had no chance this game. Like, I think he did draw particularly well. I was saying like in the top 18 cards, there was 3 Rashidas and 2 fully ops. So we were like firing a bunch of Rashidas and playing a bunch of fully ops, which kept him well on top of me throughout the game. So yeah, that was round 13. And now we're on the chopping block. Let me catch up on chat and we'll get on to the last round. Some friends, your fiance, your brother came out. Nice. That trash was correct in my opinion. Yeah, like the thing is, I know that like against like because I've played a ton of Asa and like trashing your econ, especially Nico campaign, is really really important. So like it's a very like technical econ dance with Asa. That is like you have to be very precise as the runner. But you know, sometimes it's like iced Rashidas and fully ops you can't do anything about, but the ones that you can do something about, it's really important to like get on top of it. I'm so happy that there's a non-sicko MC austerity policy deck that exists now. Big props. I did draw very well. Being able to get a Rashida behind Tatu is huge in this deck, and I did get off all 3 Rashidas. The lesson I drew from this was that Sebastian K has a lot more good ideas than he gives himself credit for. He actually talked about MCA3 Ikawa pre-Worlds. Oh yeah, no, so Sebastian's great, and he made top 16. Yeah, no, Sebastian's a great player. I didn't get to interact with him a ton this weekend, but unfortunately, like yeah, always a pleasure to chat and interact with him. Okay, we're on the chopping block, round 14 against Saf, player from Oregon playing Lat. And Saf goes, okay, so here's the, so we'll click into it. I did win. We're on table 6. And okay. Let me, okay, we're gonna catch up just to finish off round 13. I'm going to be honest, it took a while for PJ to convince me that this idea wasn't jank. Also, Compilation Archives interaction is broken and, like, offensive. Yeah, stealing the Audacity. We'll get there. So, okay, game against Saf. Saf is playing... So, okay, so the whole side arc about BTL versus Deep Dive Lat, right? Or, yeah. In this game, I drew... all my mests. So I drew. Wait, no, it wasn't this game. It wasn't quite this game. So like in this game, I also drew a bunch of mests, but like I drew like a bunch of code gates. I drew Mest Chespo and I drew Whoredom, and I once again did not find wall to wall. And I think I like didn't mulligan for wall to wall, and I opened a hand that was like 2 decent pieces of ice, an econ card, no agendas, something like that. And I was like, this is good enough. We're going to keep it. And what happened in this game was Saf goes and installs her board and then plays a trick shot. And trick shot finds SDS. Okay. So Saf goes, so I go like, access cards. She goes, yes. She installs a cataloger early. So this lat wasn't actually Deep Dive Lat. It was actually like, they had Cataloger, Imp, and Mad Dash. And because a Cataloger was installed early, I'm like, okay, Mad Dash is on my radar because I need to be very conscious about Mad Dash because my deck is really susceptible to Mad Dash. So I like find my board control pretty nice and early, and we put the board control in R&D, and we're like, we're good. Don't have to be scared about Mad Dash. And Saf goes in first run of the game, after setting up for a while, trick shots R&D, break border, break tree line, or break Mest, I think. And Saf's Koge Breaker is Shibboleth, which is like fine, because it's like 3 strength, 2 to boost strength, gets it to 4, 2 to break each subroutine. So it's like 4 to break Mest and 3 or 4 to break Whoredom, which is like fine, okay. And Saf, so I show her the first card, and she looks down at her programs, and it goes, and she goes, I'll steal it and we'll trash this program. And I'm like, okay. Show you the second card. And then she looks down at her programs, and I'm like, oh my god, like there's no way. Like, cause I'm already like nervous, right? Cause we lost round 12, we lost round 13. Like I need to win this game or I don't make the cut. And I like went into day 2 with a 9-2 record. Okay. So I'm like, I'm going to be like devastated if I don't make the cut. So I'm like, there's no way you just like trick shot it and found 2 agendas. So she looks down at her programs and goes, I'll trash this program and I'll take the SDS. So she finds 2 SDSs off this trick shot. And I'm like, oh my god, like, okay, we gotta have to claw back. Like I'm like a little pre-tilted. Okay. And I'm like, okay, we gotta claw back. But it turns out that despite not drawing wall to wall and not getting like the big barrier set up, the fact that she stole 2 3-pointers and went to 6 points meant that Mad Dash is now offline. So instead of the score pattern being 3 points and then to 7 points, she got to 6 points. So, and I think like she talks about this in her write-up, but like stealing the second agenda was wrong. Because stealing the second agenda put us to threat 6, which meets the Shibboleth threat text. So now, Shibboleth is now 1 strength, and now every time she wanted to run a central, she had to break Whoredom or Mest Chespo and pay 6, in addition to losing 3 off the Mest Chespo. And that, like, grinding that dollar amount was what got me there in the end of that game. So, despite not having the wall-to-wall, despite not having the barriers, like, I won that game because she stole 6 points and Shibboleth was her code gate breaker, and I drew all my code gates, or like a good amount of my code gates. So that was like, whew. Thank goodness, like we got out of that one. But I think I would have lost if we were playing not Shibboleth, in that specific round. Or if like, yeah. So I just squeeze out of that one. We win the last game. We make it into the top cut. But we make it in 10th seed, which is bottom half of the cut. We don't get side choice in the first round. Okay, that's round 14. Almost done. Stealing it, they took Archive M, didn't think you get decouplation, disrupting recursion options we have left. Saf is from Oregon. Is the Portland meta reviving? Yeah, I think so. There's a good number of players from Oregon. I think your game in the count against Rotom, you hit all the mess, but might not be remembering. Yes, exactly. Yeah. In the game against Rotom, I hit all the mess. Something like 5 out of 8 Portland players made day 2. Nice. Walking past that with a couple turns. Seeing your 6 points your score area. You might need to invest in a personal shuffler. As someone who splashed for Unity out of my Sable, I was shocked that Saf was on Shibboleth. Yeah. I think she talked about it being like good against certain code gates. I mean, you break Magnet for one. And also like against like Jintekis, like if Jintekis are just playing Thimble Rig, like that's appealing. But believe me, everybody, this is not the first time that. Don't worry. There's more R&D luck to come, and I'm not just talking about the game against D. Okay, so that's that game. And the matchup against Lat is like, I got out of this. I'm getting the hints now, right? I need to get wall-to-wall barrier. I'm only lucky in this game because I drew my code gates and they were playing Shibboleth and they got to threat 4. Okay, round 1 of the cut. We're up against Santa. This is a rematch from Swiss. I think like this game was just unlucky. Like as I said, like I think this matchup is favored for Lat most of the time. And Santa, like Charlie just drew all his sentries, and that can happen. Again, like the decklist discussion at the very start of this stream, like maybe we cut the revolver for an echelon, this game would have gone differently. But he drew all of his, like I think in the top like 15 to 18 cards in his deck, he found all 3 Size and 10, all 3 Anansi, fired a Charlotte a bunch of times, got them all on centrals. So when I tried to run, it was like sentry after sentry after sentry. So I was just like spending all my revolver bullets, couldn't make it in, and I eventually like made a miscalculation. Like I thought that I could get in at a certain point, and I like basically just miscalculated my bullets, which put me in a position where I was just like grasping for single accesses and sentries were firing. And he thimble rigs the sentries over to remote, and he like scores out, wins on time. Fine. Like that was just like nothing. Like I think like I made a mistake in addition to him like drawing all of his sentries. And like at the end of the game, like he said something to me that suggested like that was his plan from the very start, to like tax out my revolver counters with sentries, and this will come back later because we play this matchup again. And he's playing my Egg Infusion deck. Like this is like I know this deck as well as anybody, and like I know that such a plan is not reliable. So yeah, so we come out of that being like he had a certain plan and he drew perfectly for that plan. That's how we lost that game. I like it's interesting to like if I didn't make there was like a certain miscalculation on one of the turns that like basically I spent a lot of bullets, but I don't think like I would have still lost the game, I'm pretty sure. So that's that. I think he said we have a game plan after rezzing the third Anansi or something. Yeah, and we also talked about it after the match as well. All right. So that's that. Round two, like Rotom lost his first round game. Rotom was a higher seed, and he lost his first round game to Ruben Peters. And he told me that like it was like Ruben Peters, like Rotom had the game winning agenda in the remote, was gonna win next turn, and Ruben Peters runs R&D and has like a 2 out of 20 or something like that, and hits it, or like some kind of like really low odd R&D run, hits it. That's how Rotom lost his first round. That sucks. We get matched in the second round. And I do win this, playing BTL against his lat. His lat is of course posted. We talked about this earlier in the stream. And this is like the final match where I'm like truly solidifying my understanding of the BTL lat matchup. I open with wall to wall and Messna and I'm like, this is great, because Messna is your best opening ice. Messna is your best like mid-range ice. Logjam is your best late game ice. Messna is the best ice like overall. And I open with a ton of Messna and we go like Mest R&D. I don't remember if I like go for wall to wall right away or if I wait a turn, but basically after like turn 2, I'm pretty sure my opening turn was wall to wall Mest, advance the Mest. And then we go put another Mest on R&D, like the wall to wall's advancing the Mest on the remote. We put another Mest on HQ. So we've got a Mest and Chespo on the remote, Mest on HQ, Mest on R&D. And like this wall to wall is just advancing them all to 3. Cause like I don't find Logjam or Treeline. So I draw my Mest and I draw my wall to wall and we don't find Logjam. Okay? And that starts making things awkward because I'm like, advancing Mest is great, but like we really need to get these Logjams. And I'm just like hoping to draw them and we just don't. I set up my board without Logjam. Rotom sets up his board and he goes trick shot. And he goes break the ice, access, steal an agenda, second access, steal an agenda. So he trick shots me. I'm pretty sure this is the first run he makes in the game, like a first run where he's accessing cards and it's not like a laundry on archives or something. And he steals 2 agendas off the top with the trick shot. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like here we go again. And I'm like, we've just lost because like in round 14, like we were up against Shibboleth and they were not playing deep dive and like their econ wasn't that good. But Rotom's got great econ. He's just ripped 6 points off the top and like this deep dive is clearly coming and there's nothing I can do to stop it. There's nothing I can do. Like the Logjam hasn't shown up. I can't like get a bunch of counters on here. Like we don't have Biovault. Like we just can't stop this. This deep dive is coming. So we spend another turn, like installing some cards, what have you. And he goes and he hits this deep dive and he goes run HQ, run R&D, run archives. And like there's now like a number of people watching the game now, and he plays the deep dive, and I'm like, it's okay. World champs have whiffed deep dives before this tournament. So then I reveal the 8 cards, and we whiff the deep dive. There was 4 agendas. Maybe there was 3 agendas in the deck and 1 in HQ, or it was 4 agendas in the deck. And it was like, and he whiffs the deep dive. His odds were like not as good as mine when I deep dived against him in Swiss, but yeah, Jeff says I think HQ is clean, not 100% sure. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure all 4 agendas in R&D, and like his odds were really good. And he whiffs the deep dive. And then from there, like, and prior to that, like, I think he stole the 6 points. And in the turns in between stealing the 6 points and playing the deep dive, he discarded the second copy of deep dive. Because I think he was like, you know, if we like play solidly, land this deep dive, we should be fine. And like his hand must have been like a little cloggy, or like he wanted to cycle his cards or something. So he discards the second copy of deep dive, and and he whiffs the deep dive, and now the game gets grindy. And now time becomes like real, okay? Because like you've whiffed the deep dive, so now you're gonna go for singles. I'm gonna try to tax you out with bio vaults and eventually try to kill you with clearinghouse. There's no way I'm gonna try to score, okay? Because if I score 6 points and we tie at 6-6, you win because you're higher seed. So that means I need to kill you with clearinghouse, or I need to draw and score 3 agendas. So time's gonna get tight here, but like now we have a game on our hands. Okay, let me just catch up on chat real quick. It's usually best to face check BTL and then Mesny eats 6 credits. It's beautiful. Yeah, exactly. Dropping in to say hi. It's super late. We'll watch the beginning afterwards. Congrats on the amazing finish. Thank you, Ziad. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, Trick Shot does it again. Yeah. If you see an agenda on the Trick Shot run, you shouldn't be able to make the second run. I have a picture of this deep dive, and I'm so glad I caught R&D in frame. Ooh, yes, please, Mondi, can you like send that to me on Discord, and I'll pull that up on the stream. Yeah, I'd love to pull that up. Okay, so now the game gets grindy, right? And I basically like force him to run. Like I got like a bio vault in the remote. We've got like it's like a good amount of expensive ice on this remote now. And I get my clearinghouse in there. We start advancing the clearinghouse. And like the turn before the final turn, he runs the remote, spends about like 10 out of his 13 credits getting into the remote, gets bio vaulted, and then he like clicks for credits. And I, on the very last turn, advanced my clearinghouse to 4. He only had 3 cards left, no cards left in the deck. So I get a 4th advancement counter on the clearinghouse, put a border control on HQ, and I pass the turn, and that's like time gets called, and we're good because he doesn't have the money to get into the remote to trash this clearinghouse. HQ costs about like 6 or 7 credits, but the border control doubles that. And I have 3 agendas in hand out of the 5 cards in my hand, or maybe it was 4, but I had 3 agendas in hand. R&D had 1 agenda out of 4 or 5. And it turns out he was 1 credit short of getting into R&D as well, because he had to click for credits and like get through there was like a 7 strength Colossus there in front of a Mest. And yeah, he was just short, or maybe it was a Hordem or something, but he was a credit short from getting access out of R&D, couldn't get any access elsewhere. And we land the clearinghouse kill right at the end. And that was that game. We have some pictures. Okay, so yeah, here's the deep dive. Thank you, Mondi, for sending this over. Yeah, there's our 8 cards. You see the 2 log jams in there and the border control. So we have our Mess and Chesfos on centrals and on the remote. We had this wall-to-wall ticking. Didn't find logjam. There's not a lot of cards left in R&D, as you can see. And yeah, that was the situation. And that's how we win our round 2 game against Rotom. Again, like this is the 4th time I played against Rotom in person this weekend, and it was the first time I had played against Rotom like in person was this weekend. So like didn't play him in 2022, didn't play him in 2023, played against him 4 times in 2024. Like it's an absolute pleasure to play against him. It was so much fun. Yeah, as I said, like the talking and the like understanding of the game was like just so good. So much fun. There's so few cards left in R&D. Yeah, there's like 4 whole agendas in there. Maybe like 12 cards left. 10 maybe. There's probably like 12 cards in there. But yeah. Oh, Joe says looks like you have no more than 6. That's, I don't know. I feel like there's got to be more than 6. Like this is 8 cards, right? Like the stack of 8 that's on the board is 8. Like that looks like it's more than 8. I want to say it's like 10 to 12. Yeah, I want to say it's 10 to 12. Anyways, Jeff says I could see that being almost 20. Okay, we got we got a lot of wide range of estimates here. I'll leave that on stream for a bit. Joe says okay, maybe closer to 10. Cards are thin. Okay, cards are thin. Okay. Anyways, let's continue. Round 3. Okay. Round 3, we're up against Tak. Now, remember in round 12, there were 3 people I could play against, right? There was Arizan on Arasana, there was Tak on Lat, and there was Rotom on Lat. And Tak was one of the 3 options. And it turns out Tak is playing Aesop's Lat, and Aesop's Lat is my worst matchup. Like, yes, Arasana with Hush is bad, but Aesop's Lat makes a ton of money. And like Aesop's Lat, in my mind, is a slow deck. Aesop's Lat is the best runner deck in terms of sitting there and gaining money. And if you're playing like a Glacier deck that's trying to go slow, Aesop's Lat is like your worst matchup. And so like I look at the deck list, like I sit down at round 3, I pair up against him. And yeah, exactly. Jai's like, this is like Bridgman Lat. Exactly. And I've tested against this. I've been working with Finn on like some Aesop's Lat on the side because he's like passionate about that. And I had this conversation happened where he was like, hey, like I'm not testing for worlds or stuff like that. But like, if you want me to not play this deck and not show people this deck, I won't. And I'd be like, I would prefer if you didn't do that. So yeah, so like he's like, that'll get posted at some point. But there is a really good Aesop's Lat out there that Finn and I have worked on. But this matchup's really bad for me because I feel like Aesop's Lat is like they can get rushed out because you have a lot of cards in your deck that make you money. But my deck is not trying to rush you out, so yeah, it's just really bad. But the one thing about Tak's Aesop's Lat is he's playing Takobi instead of Turbine. And I think Takobi like can shine against decks where you're like constantly breaking like middle, like low to mid strength ice. So there's like a good range of ice in the deck. My deck doesn't have that. My deck is all like annoying ice. Okay, there isn't like, because in Egg Infusion there's like some border controls, there's some Tattoos, there's some Thimble Rigs, and then there's some like Sisentans, and then there's Anansi and like Bran, right? But my deck is all like 4 strength or more. Okay, so that is what won me this game. Like in terms of deck construction, was that he was playing Takobi instead of Turbine, and Takobi just doesn't work against my deck because you have to break to get Takobi counters. So yes, I will lose if you get your Takobi going, but it's actually like really hard to get Takobi going. So that's what happened. He didn't get Takobi installed, which makes a lot of sense. And I think he played as well as he could. There was one run in this game that was a mistake. He spent like, there was a turn where like I had wall to wall ticking in the remote, and he ran the remote and SMC'd for Kogi Breaker, and then simulchipped the SMC to get a propeller, and then spent the propeller to trash the wall to wall, and like that just like cost him a ton of money and a ton of like programs because it cost him the propeller and it cost him a simulchip, and that ended up costing him just like too much utility. With that said, though, like if he didn't make that run and he let me trigger the wall to wall, like maybe I would have won the game anyways. So it wasn't a mistake. Yeah, but that was like a really taxing run for him in terms of utility. And I basically leverage the lack of simul chips at the end of the day to win this game. Okay. Muse Cole Aesop's Ladder Kit will just make enough money to break anything. Yeah. SDS doesn't. Well, okay. Well, yeah. Kit is like you can SDS kit, but not lat. Tak brought something similar to Cascadia and almost didn't bring this. He was considering Anakin lat until almost last day. Oh. Side note: why do egg players not play Boto? Do they really have no way to spend influence against except Bran? I don't like Boto because Boto being at 4 strength is like think about like my lat deck, right? A big reason why my Egg Infusion matchup is good now is because Turbine makes the Propeller break Bran for 2 counters, which means a single Propeller plus Turbine can break Bran twice. And Boto, I can do the same thing against Boto without the Turbine. So that's like Boto's just really bad. In my opinion, Boto's just really bad. Like 6 res 4 strength is just not good enough. Like Cleaver is almost there. Propeller is like it's bad against Propeller. Cleaver costs you 2 to boost strength, 1 to 2 to break. Yeah, and you really need to get to threat 4 and be at 6 strength, and then it's serviceable. And then it's good. Let's be fair, but like being bad until threat 4 is just quite bad. It was like a 13 plus credit run, I feel. Yeah, it was like a lot of money because we like had to pop 2 SMCs in addition to using Propeller and using Simulchip. So it was like a lot of resources. Brandon's a lot better than Boto, especially before threat 4. Mm-hmm. Letting Boto fire doesn't set the runner back tempo-wise as much as Bran either. Bran is like the thing is like Bran synergizes with Egg Infusion a lot. So like a lot of the times as Egg Infusion, like you can't let the Bran fire because Bran firing putting like a useless ice behind it is insane for Egg Infusion. And a lot of the times, like if you're playing against HB and they res a Bran and just let the whole thing fire, that's actually like fine a lot of the time. Well, like more times against Egg Infusion at least. You often glacier up more than half the game, then score 7 plus face down ice after Bran is better. Yeah, that's the other thing is the way that I play the Egg Infusion. Is that you build your board and you trigger your Charlotte and you build your board and you build your board. And then when you start scoring, you rip to 7. You go from 0 to 7 in like 3 or 4 turns. Because you score your first agenda, you get your second agenda in there immediately, you score your second agenda, you like bury cards with back pro, you get your third agenda in there, and like you've won. So the way that I generally play the Egg, like you don't spend a lot of time after threat 4, but before you win the game. Okay, and we've made it through. This has become my longest debrief stream, but we've made it through talking through all of the rounds before like I start showing up on stream. So that was round 3 against Tak. Round 4 we're now against Zinchling. And so let's pull this up. This was a solid game. I feel like I played really well this game. There was a lot of things that that I had to sniff out that I did. So like a lot of really, really key moments this game that I'm really proud about, that we'll click through here. And I'll catch up on chat as well. I believe the game against Tak ended with him dying to clearinghouse with no cards in grip stack. Yeah, something like that. Or I think there was like some amount of cards, but it was like a low clearinghouse kill because there wasn't a lot of cards left. Zinchling in chat, I know I made a handful of mistakes, including even putting ice on R&D in that first turn. including putting ice on R&D. Oh, okay, because like I guess because the ice on R&D was like Bran, right? It ended up being rezzed at the very, very end. But yeah, so at the very start of this game here, like we get this. So this is kind of funny because we get the turbine out, but then I end up not drawing Anacam. And this is what made this game really challenging. Was like I felt like I was playing really well. Chris wasn't getting the best draw. I was like getting decent draw, except I didn't find Anacam. I didn't find Anacam the entire game. I didn't see a single copy of it. So I started running into some serious MU problems this game. But like click 1, 2, install SMC, trick shot. And this is just like excellent because we see 2 cards off the top. We like pressure the remote. If the remote gets res, we can SMC break it, get this Rashida, if it's Rashida. And if we don't res, we can SMC and spend the trick shot money for our turbine, and we like get our breakers set up for the rest of the game. If we have to get our breakers out still, but turbine is going to help a ton. So, some key informational points here. Yeah, this is the game where I'd get turbine, assuming I'd find Anacam. So there's some key informational points here. Off the top of R&D, I access Audacity and Tatu. Okay? So I know that Audacity and Tatu are coming, and that's like informs a lot of my decision making. Okay? So let's just keep that in mind. I know there's Audacity and Tatu. He goes no res, we pop the SMC, we get the turbine, we run into the remote, trash Rashida, install Stone Ship, get our lat draw, take a credit, something like that, right? Or no, I just like install Stone Ship, something, yeah, or like draw a card, get our lat draw, yeah. And he goes, install MCA, install ice on top, res MCA. Now, remember, I guess I saw Tatu and then Audacity, but I saw Tatu, okay? So, like, if you're sitting from the corpse position, install MCA, install ice on top with Asa, res MCA, click it. Like, Tatu should always be the best ice in your hand here. So I assumed that the ice in front was Tatu. That's important later. So we assume the ice in front is Tatu, and I'm just like, okay, we got 3 clicks. We're gonna set up, like, we're not threatened by this MCA at the moment. One thing you don't want to do against decks like Asa, where they have a bunch of remotes, is you don't want to aggressively run and trash the thing in their remote, because if you spend a bunch of resources trashing the thing in the remote, what you've done is you've spent resources and you've now opened a slot in the remote. So now the corp can install something new in there, and you're gonna have to deal with that again. So if the thing in the remote is not like pressing for you to deal with, then you're not in a rush to deal with it. So like MCA, for example, is like the corp's going to spend a click next turn. You're going to lose a click. You're just going to trade a click. But like running aggressively in there and trashing it and spending a bunch of money only for the corp to install a new thing in the remote is worse for you. So we're not in a rush to run this. So we like play a gamble, click for some credits, get a lat draw. Right? He goes, installs 2 cards in the remote, clicks the MCA. And then I think that's it. So we go on, and okay, so this was an interesting moment, because like I know that he doesn't have a ton of money, and like he hasn't had the greatest start, right? Economically, he has not had the greatest start. So I'm just like, we didn't res this ice on turn 1, so maybe the ice is just a bluff. And if it's like Drafter, we're gonna like pick up Greasing the Palm and install Rashida in a new remote, which is like fine. I can deal with that. But he does have a Hagen in his deck. So like this was like a moment of risk that I felt okay to take on, was I poked this remote click 1 because like I don't want him to fire Rashidas. I don't want him to have Nico campaigns. So I poked this remote click 1 at the risk of losing my turbine to Hagen. I did have Simulchip in my hand, so The plan was, if we get Hagen and we lose the turbine, I would install Simulchip right away and just Simulchip it back. And that would suck. But that was the risk I decided to take at this moment. I don't think Tatu is necessarily the best ice to put in front of MCA because you may never want to res that ice. MCA's trash cost is high enough. Oh, really? Tatu's best when you know you always want to protect the remote. Oh, because you're saying that the MCA trash cost is high enough that the runner won't run at all? Because the thing is, like, Tatu wants to be where the runner is going to run in. So if you think the runner is going to run through the ice, then you want to put the Tatu there. Yeah. So that's my read. I guess I don't totally follow what you're trying to say here. If you're trying to say like MCA's trash cost is high enough that the runner won't run at all, so like maybe you don't want to put Tatu there because like the runner's not going to run through the Tatu. But like every time the runner runs through Tatu, especially given Chris's economic position, right? Like he had 4 credits, maybe 5. So like we like. Yeah, if I like SMC overclock or something like that, and you res something that is not Tatu, and you spend money to then get your MCA trash, like that seems quite bad. Jeremy says Zinchling did the best on camera poker body language work, leaning back when feeling insecure, leaning forward when feeling secure. I would consider saving the Tatu for Rashida. Fair enough. Okay. But we've got like this other remote already. So like I think chances are very high this is Tatu, because like how many remotes are we actually going to make? Unless we're installing Rashida behind this remote and putting another ice on top, which means you had like Tatu and another ice. Like odds are just like not that good. So anyways, so like I have this ice in front of MCA pitted as Tatu. We run the remote at risk of Hagen. And he goes, res pulse. I'm like, okay, that's neat. I remind myself what that does. I lose a credit. And I'm just going to bounce because like there's an upgrade in here. So if I like spend my last click getting in and it's like a skunk works, then that's just bad. So you can have your thing. We're going to bounce. Bouncing also gives me my lat draw because I can play the Simulchip out of hand, get a lat draw. Turns out it's cohort. That's fine. This part was really interesting because he like triggers cohort the next couple of turns, but there's a lot of turns where he chooses not to, which makes me wonder, like, are we flooded? But it turns out we weren't. Like, we just had a lot of, like, gatekeepers and, like, high-value cards we had in our hand that we didn't want to lose. Okay, here we go. So he goes, install card new remote, ice it, and install a card, and then he goes, click the MCA and do something else. And notice he's only got 3 credits. And this is where, like, the Tatu, thinking that Tatu was on the MCA, like, turned out to be, like, a really key read, because I only have 3 clicks. So if I go install, and you'll see me do this really quickly, because this was planned, was just, like, install Parisha, run the MCA, so it looks like I'm going to go and trash the MCA, and if you don't res, then I am going to trash the MCA. But like you've got 3 credits, res the Tatu. Tatu gets rezzed, so now the Corporaling's got 1 credit. So we swing over to the remote, can't res the remote ice, we trash the Rashida. Key trash. Okay, we continue on, no cohort trigger, so he's like super broke. And he clicks the MCA and spends most of that clicking for credits, which is what you want to see as the runner against an MCA deck. I think to paraphrase Nick Ride, Tatu is best where the runner doesn't feel comfortable bouncing. Yeah, that's fair. Yep. I'm gonna pause and catch up on chat. My hand was Seamless Audacity for a while. Yeah. Very high value cards. Forcing the runner to choose between giving you a Tatu swap and firing a possible Rashid is a good fork. So Nick Ride, let me tell you a story about that. So At East Coast Nationals this last year, I played against Analyze Chris, and Analyze Chris was playing Big Deal PD, and Chris has a moment where he goes install. He had 3 credits, and there was an agenda in the remote, and or maybe he had 2 credits. He had 2 credits and an agenda in the remote, and he goes. So he can't score he can't like seamless double advance score the off world in the remote. And he goes, install Rashida naked, install Tatu on top of it, take a credit. And now he's like, we're good, right? We're gonna like get the money, we're gonna score the off world next turn. And I go, run the remote, res Tatu, bounce, pinhole the Rashida. And then he like starts his next turn on 1 credit. And then he like couldn't score, so he spends the next turn doing something else, and then I go and collect the off-world office in the remote because that bought me a key turn. And at the end of the game, he was like, "Yeah, like I probably shouldn't have like relied on you to misplay into the Tatu." So that's a story that came to mind with that fork. Yeah. What is Alagarda? No idea. Okay, so we go on. I'm just like drawing cards, setting up a board. He gets a card in the remote. We let the cohort trigger for a while. And then turns out is a spin doctor. Like again, like I think there was a lot of like it was unfortunate for him in a lot of ways because I like trashed 2 Rashidas, and like in this moment right here where he like put a card in the remote and put a second ice on top, like he got that, right? If it was Nico campaign, if it was Rashida, like that could have like really got him going. And like unfortunately that card just wasn't there for him. So he pops a spin doctor, we go on, he installs a bunch of cards. And okay, so this is like, and again, I'm very proud about the way that I played in this game because there was a lot of like really good moments in my play, and like this was one of them. Is on this turn where we've got the cohort running and we've got 3 new cards, like I don't have breakers, right? Because I have an MU problem right now. I've got Parisha on the board, I've got Turbine on the board, and I have an SMC which gets me 1 breaker. So if the ice in front of the Tatu is a non-barrier, then I just can't get in unless I want to like pop SMC, simulchip for SMC, and then like trash the Parisha, which is like not good. And if I want to run the other remote, like I might have to like, if it's Gatekeeper, like I'm gonna have to like SMC for Buzzsaw, and the thing is like, you don't want to SMC for things. Like, if you have a way of tutoring for an icebreaker, you want to use that tutor as late as possible because you want to naturally draw into 2 out of the 3 types, and you want to tutor for the last one. Because if you tutor early, your chances of drawing into the other 2 are now lower. So I don't want to make these runs. But like we also understand that this cohort can like place an advancement counter somewhere. So I also feel the need to go flip the cards face up in archives. So that's what we do. We've got an overclock in hand, so we're just gonna like be credit efficient. And in this case, we're gonna go and overclock archives, and we're gonna SMC for our Buzzsaw. And like Buzzsaw is a 1-of in our deck. Revolver and Propeller are 2-ofs. So we'll get a Kogate Breaker, get that out, and we'll still like hopefully draw into our Barrier and Sentry Breaker. And it also flips the cards face up in archives. Key turn, because on his next turn, he reses the Wage Workers, and he goes ahead and scores a Vitruvius. And he thinks about it for a while, and he goes triple advance score, or so he goes triple advance seamless score Vitruvius with 2 counters. And if I didn't make that run, like we would have cohorted for an extra counter, like maybe we would have 1 counter without playing the seamless. We would have 2 counters without playing the seamless, or we would have 3 counters. So that was like an important moment in this game. Allegard is the company that made the stream overlay for Worlds this year. Oh, cool. The opening econ turns are so fragile. Yeah, it's a good call, Jai. Why did I pull a turbine before breaker? Because I was expecting to draw my breakers. Well, yeah, because you had a lot of cash on trick shot. So you're either pulling Buzzsaw or you're pulling turbine. And it's like Buzzsaw is bad without turbine, so let's just get the turbine, and the turbine will help your barrier and sentry breaking capabilities. Yeah. It could have been Buzzsaw. It's just that like turbine keeps you flexible. Like if you because you're expecting to draw into breakers. Because you have 2 propellers and 2 revolvers. So as you draw into those breakers, like they're just gonna be really good once you get them down. Whereas like turbine or else Buzzsaw like gets you into code gates, but doesn't help your sentry and barrier situation. So like just like it's just where you think that balance is struck. I think getting Buzzsaw could also be correct. Yeah. The Corp did not have any magnets, I want to say. Gatekeepers. It was like 3 gatekeepers and a pulse. Yeah, I think it was 3 gatekeepers and a pulse, was what I remember. Maybe there was a magnet in there? Yeah. You don't need a breaker for pulse? You do! What do you mean? Buzzsaw gets in for 1. Okay, so now we got these 2 Vitruvius counters. Now, at this point in the game, I'm like, and 1 MIC, which is terrible into Turbine Buzzsaw. Yeah, there's an MIC in there as well. Okay, at this point in the game, I was like, okay, we've got 2 Vitruvius counters. It's not totally clear how you're using them, but like, they're very good, obviously. And I'm like, okay, like, you know, I'm in a great spot. We got $21. He's got $3. We're gonna go, like, we've got our Buzzsaw down now. We're gonna go and kill this cohort. And I didn't want to do this last turn because last turn I would have not have the clicks to go through a Skunkworks. So we go this turn, top of this turn, we see the other card, it's a Trank Grid. And this is like, you can see me like sigh a little bit because I'm like, if I'm running to trash cohort and I don't trash the Trank, that just doesn't make any sense. Because like he's gonna install cards in that remote and he's gonna get $2 off the Trank, so I like have to trash the Trank. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So we trash the Trank with $4 real. We $2 off Perisha to trash the cohort. And the game goes on. We like, we play a build script, get some cards, we draw another card, and then we like play a creative, get a lab draw. Staying efficient the whole time. He goes, installs 2 more cards and plays his first copy of Fully Op. Draw some cards, get some money. And again, I still have this breaker problem. Like, in my hand, I still don't have, like... I think I have either a propeller or a revolver in my hand, but the problem is, without Anacam, like, if I install a 4th MU... then if I draw SMC later, then like, and Anacam, then that's awkward. If I draw SMC and Anacam before installing another program right now, then I can go SMC Anacam, pop the SMC for a breaker, and then install my other breaker, and I don't have to like trash a program. So that's on my mind, but he's just installed 2 cards in a remote. He's got $8, so we're like threatening an agenda somewhere. I don't know where. It's very easy for me to check the pulse remote, but I probably can't get into the other remote because I don't have a barrier breaker, don't have a sentry breaker, right? So we go ahead and we take a bit here and we go in Pinhole Archives or HQ and we go and trash this Wage Workers, and that's just like general good value because it's like I don't know if there's an agenda on the board. Maybe it's Rashida, like. One way or another, he's going to want to use Wage Workers next turn. We're going to get rid of this Wage Workers. And I don't want to take any risk of, like, running into Drafter. So we go in, like, we play this Pinhole, get rid of the Wage. use our Parisha value, and then we just go ahead and throw our Propeller on the board. Because it's like, we've gotten enough out of this Parisha, maybe we'll just kill it later. And sure enough, there's a Vitruvius on the board, and he goes triple advance, score Vitruvius, and now he's got 4 points. A little scary. I don't have Clot, as the stream has timely reminded us. Okay, we're catching up on chat. Some chatter about Hagen. Trank makes a huge economic impact. Yeah. The fact that it was like the Trank was installed in there and it didn't do anything was a big deal. The best thing the Trank did throughout the tournament was cost my opponent 4 credits to trash it. Side note, you think people will mind if I label my Ace deck God Emperor Swiss? That seems fine. Oh, it's a Dune reference? Man, I don't know anything about Dune. Okay. So we go on, score this agenda, and we game goes on, right? I finally get my Revolver down. I have to get rid of my Parisha. We still don't have our Anacam. And he just goes and Audacity's Illuminal and goes click to draw. And I'm like, oh, we're screwed now. Because it's like, well, we're not screwed, but now it's like super scary. Like I had this game like well in my hands, and it's like, okay, like we might be slipping here because we've got these 2 Vitruvius counters, we've got this Audacity, I've got no points, and like think about the agenda suite. Like, yes, there's only 1 Vitruvius that he's threatening to fast advance, but there's only 1 Vitruvius for me too. So like, we're gonna have to like try to steal some Ikawa projects. Like I don't have Hannah, I don't have DJ Sable. Like, where are we going to get these clicks to deep dive? Lots of problems for me. So original. Okay, so here's the interesting part, and this is the part where where we have to make some tough decisions. And we install Cupulation and we get rid of this Propeller because I don't have MU. And I decided that Chris's eagerness to put an ice on R&D early suggests that the ice on R&D is a drafter. Most of the time when people play HB, they put their drafters on centrals and they're like other ice on remotes. That's usually like a PD thing, but it also bleeds into ASA as well. So I decided to take a risk that this ice on R&D was not a ablative barrier, because if it was a ablative barrier, that would have been really bad for me. But like, he was very like, if we think about the opening turn, like he put a pulse in front of the Rashida. So like, it doesn't make any sense for you to put a ablative barrier on R&D and a pulse in front of Rashida. Right? So like the ice on R&D is like worse than Pulse for the purposes of ending the run. It was like an informed gamble that we throw the Cupulation on the board, get rid of the Propeller, and we go for this trick shot. And this was the plan at the start of this turn. At the start of this sequence was install Cupulation, trick shot. C2 cards, pick up a card with Cupulation. I get to run the Spin Doctor with a trick shot, nice little bonus. And then we run HQ, trash the Cupulation, C3 out of HQ, sweep the hand. Because he just drew 3 cards, so the chances that there's a Vitruvius, that there's a Send a Message, and a Ikawa are decent. And we're just going to sweep the hand and C3 out of HQ. And we go into R&D, and he goes no res. And we go Access 1. Right, I get the $2 more on the trick shot. We go Access 1, and it's like, powers that be, spend money to trash it, because we're not really spending money on this trick shot anyways. And then we see Rashida, and I'm like, okay, we Cupulation this Rashida, run the spin, run HQ, follow our plan. And then I realized that like I think it was just like the tempo that Chris was playing at. Like, I played the trick shot, and he went, no res, pick up the deck. I'm ready to show you cards. And then he goes, no, okay, we're good to go. Show you one card, show you second card. And there was just something in the back of my head that was like, you know what? Like, if I try to run archives and try to pick up this Audacity, which is not something that I had in my mind at the very start of this turn when I installed Cupulation, but like, I remembered that was something I could do during this run. And I was like, wait a second, if I try to do that, like, something about like his tempo of play just like suggested to me that like he wouldn't notice that was what was going on. So I waffled a bit here. I was like, okay, I'm gonna Cupulation the Rashida, and then I was like, you know what? No, we're gonna trash it. And then we swing over to the Spin Doctor. It was a nice bonus that the Spin Doctor didn't get popped, because I think that like shields our intentions a little bit. Is we don't pop the Spin Doctor, so now when I run archives, there's face down cards in there, and like it's a little bit more legitimate. Because if he goes and like pops the Spin Doctor, and there's like no face down cards in archives, or maybe there's like one or two, like the fact that I'm following up with an archives run is like more sus. But now that we've like trashed the spin, there's face down cards in archives, and I go and like swing over and run archives, like that's like not that sus. So then immediately, like we see this on stream, obviously this is like 2x speed right now, but I go and I swing over, I run archives, and you see he immediately like picks up the cards in archives, shows them to me, and in that moment, like he picks up the face down cards and shows them to me, and I'm like, yes. Because in that moment I knew that like the Audacity play was not on his mind. Jeff says, I'm now going to have to check my replays. I feel like I value drafters on the remotes quite a bit. Yeah, like I don't know. Like from the games that I've seen, usually drafters go on centrals. I'll be honest, I completely missed that you could cup the Audacity isn't even a possible move. Yeah. Hit him with the Temple of Play move. Exactly. This line was truly a stroke of genius. I lost my mind when I saw it. Thank you. Yeah, so we go ahead, we pay the $1, we pick up the Audacity, and now we get to sit on this. And I'm like, okay. Like now we're like, we've diffused this score 3-2 situation. Now the onus is back on him to figure it out. But the problem is, I still have a problem here, is I've overwritten my barrier breaker, right? So like I still have a breaker situation, but he's got a money situation. So there's still like a fight that needs to happen here. So he goes and clicks this MCA, installs a card in the remote. And then there's another moment here, where I catch Chris on a little bit of a mistake. I go and trick shot, and we go and see C2 cards again. We see the Linakawa project. And then we go on and we swing over to the remote. I can't break barriers, but we can simul-chip the turbine into my propeller, which is actually kind of perfect here because the turbine gets used to break the gatekeeper, and then we trash it to get the propeller. So we go ahead and break the gatekeeper, use the simul-chip to break the Tatu. And he goes and uses Vitruvius to pick up a Spin Doctor. And this was another moment where like he picks up the Spin Doctor. So now, like, you know, everybody knows what's going on now, right? We're like swapping the Tatu for a piece of ice, putting the Spin Doctor in the remote with Asa, overwriting the agenda. And I'm like, yep. And then he goes, and then I approach the server, and then he goes, okay, now I'm going to res Skunkworks, and we're gonna make you deal with Skunkworks. And I remember sitting there, and I like pause for a moment. We can like watch this on real time if we want. So it's like we go ahead, we pay $1, we pay our counter, we break. He does the swap, and then after the swap, he's like, okay, now we're gonna res Skunkworks, and I'm like, yup. Like, now we're going to make you deal with Skunkworks. And I sit here and I'm like, all right. So then we pay the $5. And now it's too late to res the Spin Doctor now. Because there's no window to do that after I deal with the Skunkworks. Which, like, the thing is, this is interesting because this isn't, like, necessarily a straight mistake. And there's probably some chat that I need to catch up on, but I want to finish, like, talking through this thought. This isn't exactly a straight mistake because you could be baiting me here. And like, this would have been, like, great bait, if that's what we were trying to do. I don't think that's what Chris was trying to do, but, like, this wasn't necessarily bad for him because I'm like, the runner feels like I'm like, you know, I've got you. There's an agenda in archives. You can't spin it back now. We're going to trash the spin, trash the Skunkworks. And now last click, I'm just going to, like, I don't need to go and run it right now because it's like, if in case it's Ikawa project, like, I can run it next turn. We can just, like, play a card and like be solid, right? So I do that. Oh, actually, no, I do run it, actually. Never mind. Okay, so that was, like, thoughts that went through my head. It's like, do I run it or not? And I was like, you know what? Like, this kind of looks like it's the Vitruvius. We're just going to go and run it. So we run archives. I have no clicks left. We see the Ikawa project. Fine. Next turn, he goes and installs a Blade of Barrier. And I go and I run archives. And this was, like, another bit of another, like, potential mistake that, like, Chris had, like, talked about at the end of the game was we could have ablative, like, instead of Vitruvius countering for the Ikawa project, we could have just rezzed ablative for the Spin Doctor and just spun the Ikawa back into R&D, which is, like, a big deal. But again, this is not necessarily an error because if you think about what happened here, like, he goes and Vitruvius counters the Ikawa project and then ablatives the Spin Doctor, right? Which means the Ikawa project is now in HQ and we've used all of our Vitruvius counters. So, misplay or not, okay, we've installed a spin and we've used our Vitruvius counters. So what he's, like, essentially done is he's, like, put an agenda in hand and he's baited me into running HQ to C3. So that's what happened here is I go and I'm like, all right, you got 4 cards in hand. If you res the Spin Doctor, which I think, like, he could have, then he could go to 6 cards in hand and I would see half of those cards at worst. And I'm like, I'm going to take those odds to try to find this Ikawa project because I only have 7 credits and I've lost the turbine. So, like, a Gatekeeper is, like, unbreakable for me, freshly res Gatekeeper. And if he, like, continues just jamming cards in this remote, he's got this MCA ticking. Like, if this game goes too long, I am going to lose. Like, he's not just threatening a fast advance plan here. So, like, by the sequence of play that he took, whether we think it's a misplay or not, like, the effect of what he did was he baited me into using this cupulation to see 3 out of HQ. So I come in, we see 3 out of HQ, we steal the Ikawa project, and now the Audacity is in the bin, and he's got a Spin Doctor on the board. So now, at the start of his turn, he goes and Spin Doctors the Audacity back into the deck, and now he's got, like, his fast advance out again, because I've now given him the Audacity back, and he's Spin Doctored the Audacity back into the deck. Would the game have gone, like, the game would have gone differently, obviously, but, like, how would the game have gone had those 2 plays been done differently and I held on to the Audacity? Like, we would end up, like, playing a remote game, and, like, I don't, right? Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, he's kind of, like, baited me into, like, giving him the Audacity back here, which has given him another substantial out in this game. Okay. Catch up on chat. The more I play purple decks, the more I agree with William. That drafter goes on remote, or that goes on centrals. Asa puts drafter on remotes, they want to shove assets behind, I find. Yeah, it happens more often as Asa. But a lot of the times, like, you want to just have a hard end the run to protect, like, your econ stuff. But not on the scoring remote, exactly. Um, all of chat just exploded. This isn't even the first time I've messed up the time between Reses and Madagarm. Ah. The problem is that I'm on 0, so I can't res ice to protect things, but I also still need to try to draw both Audacity and the last Vitruvius. Yeah. But like, you're on 0, but you only need 1. Right? I think better may have been for Chris to pull Foliop with the Vit counter 2 turns ago for credits. That's true. Like the Vitruvius counter gives you so many options. I think MIC R&D, but it's a matter of taste. Oh, I like MIC R&D. It's a matter of taste. Yeah, that's like MIC in like a weird place can get people. I don't really know. I gotta think how open you are with chat. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I like. Yeah, like I love like chatting and like getting all this out there. It's all like all really fun to chat about. Thank y'all for like watching all of this. We've been here for a while. And I'm gonna have to like eat and like go to soccer soon because it is late. But anyways, I mean this is basically the end of this game. He goes on, clicks the MCA. We've now shuffled the Audacity back in, discards a card, and I decide to go ahead take this risk. And I'm like, if you drew your 3/2, like I just Cupulation swept hand. So if you drew your 3/2 and drew your Audacity, then you got me. But I'm just gonna run the remote, trash this MCA, click for credits, and pass. And he goes in fully ops, gets a bunch of money. And this turn I tried to deep dive. We like run R&D. If he goes no res, or if he goes no res, then we can like run archives, pay 1, and then deep dive, and we can find like there's a send a message and a Vitruvius stuff somewhere. But he reses Bran. Doesn't make sense for me to keep going. I let it fire. He reinstalls an ice from archives, and I'm just like, all right, like he's got money. I just got to find agendas out of HQ now because running R&D just doesn't make sense, and my econ has now gone away. We've got a 1 in 5 out of HQ. We miss. And I'm just like, okay, we got to go again. So we go again and we hit the send a message, and that was it. This was like an insane game. This was like such a good game. And as I said, like a lot of like, I think I made a lot of really good plays, that I'm very proud of. And I think like a lot of those things, like trashing Rashidas, and like I think Chris didn't draw a Nico campaign, didn't find a third Rashida. Like the fully op came a little late, and that like that lack in Asa tempo just allowed me to stay in it really, because like I didn't find Anacam, so like I had to deal with like MU problems on my side of the board. So really interesting game. Oh, you're not on Nico at all. I have 2 cohort in the Trank instead of Nico. Oh, okay, yeah. Fair enough. But then the cohort got a little awkward, which was lucky for me as well. This is the only game where the lack of credits hurt. Yeah, I think the cohort like didn't trigger on at least 2 turns, just because like you liked the cards in your hand too much, which was just like a little unfortunate. Okay. And then we're running through. I'm up against Santa. This game, like again, like I think like he had the plan of like stopping me from deep diving, and I think that was just, in my mind, that's like not consistent. I'm gonna rip through this one pretty quick. But there was like a key moment in this game where he goes, turn 1, he goes hedge fund, install, hedge fund, ice. And then turn 2, he goes install ice, install card in the remote, advance. And I have 3 credits. I have 4 credits, sorry. And I go in Pinhole Archives and I see Offworld. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you see my face there. I'm like, okay. And then I go click to draw into Propeller. And I'm like, wow, what the hell? Like my hand was actually really bad. Um, like there was no like econ in the hand. It was like late game cards. It was like Hannah, DJ, Simulchip, and like an event of some sort. And like, and I draw a propeller, and I'm like, okay, click 3, install propeller. Click 4, run the remote. And we're just gonna be like absolutely crazy. Because you only jam, like, I don't think you jam an off-world in the remote behind a sentry, behind a Saisentan or a Nazi. And if you do, good for you. I take a bunch of damage. I take 2 points. And then I figure it out. But most likely, it's a Tatu. It's a board control. And in this case, it was a Bran. And Bran, he just can't res that. Because if he reses, he can't score. And if he doesn't have an ice in hand, then like I can just pay 2 credits and break in. Yeah, so he can't res. He goes ahead and boosts me to archives, and he loses a Bran. Huge deal. So that's like one thing of 2 that sets up the rest of this game. Yeah, it is a really bold jam. He went to grab dinner with Izzy, came back last 5 minutes. Like, what happened here? Let me tell you what happened here. So this was the first big moment was making him egg boot me with the Bran. So he's like now lost a key piece of ice. He goes ahead, scores the offworld. Game goes on. I set up my board. He like ices archives, plays a bunch of hedge funds, plays a bunch of Hansi reviews, puts an ice on a remote, installs a second card in the remote, installs a card. Installs a second ice on the remote, installs a card on the remote, advances, and I'm like, that's Charlotte. We're going to play on. I like set up a bunch of stuff. He goes and reses Charlotte, triggers Charlotte, plays Sprint, advances the Charlotte, puts a second ice on R&D. Like he's just kind of like setting up his board, puts a third ice on R&D, keeps advancing the Charlotte. I'm setting up my board now. And at this point in the game, he looks at my deck list, right? And another turn goes on. He's got a 4th ice on R&D. Because again, like remember, his game plan coming in was like, I'm going to stop you from deep diving. So he's going to like stack a bunch of ice on R&D and like end the run a bunch of times, which makes a lot of sense if that's what I'm going to go for. And I quickly like realize what's up here. And I think there's a turn here where I just like click for credits. Yeah, on this turn already, I probably did this on the previous turn, but I was just like, click the telework, click for 2 more credits, lat draw. And I'm like, this has been going on for a little bit now, and I've like gone through enough of my cards. I've got Turbine Cleaver, Propeller, and I've got SMC, which is going to get me my Revolver. My cards will come, my lat draw will draw them. We're going to click for credits. We've got all 3 Simulchips. There's nothing else that I'm looking for, right? So we're going to click for credits. It's actually funny because like, there was like, I feel like there's a couple turns where there's a lot of turns where I just go take 4, go. And I think the commentators is like, it's like a little hard to follow games with, especially without audio. But like, I think Cranked at one point was like, did Sokka just click for 4? Like that was a really fast turn. And I think when he says that, that was like the 4th time in a row that I had clicked for 4. So I had done that the previous 3 turns. But again, like, you know, it's easy to miss as like from the commentators because like you can't hear audio and stuff like that, and there's a lot of stuff that you're trying to do and talk about. But yeah, okay, so he plays another sprint, game goes on, and he's like thinking about what to do. He's got his Charlotte advancing, and I'm just like, roll my mark, click for 4, go, right? Like, and at one point, so here's the turn where he goes, install a card in the remote, advance it, put an upgrade there. And I've done this before, right? Like, I have Hannah on the board, and I've got all my breakers. So, like, in my mind is like, if this is an agenda, which it clearly is, because we've just killed a Charlotte, I can get this. And again, like, one key thing about playing against Egg Infusion is if you don't let them res an ice on a central, then there's no place for them to boop you to where you have to break a piece of ice. So we roll our mark, and we go on, click 1 overclock, and he goes res border control, fine, break it. And then he goes res thimble rig, and And then we break that, and then he swaps it with an ice on R&D, and then you go res void, and at this point I go SMC for revolver because I have extra overclock money, and then he goes and triggers void. And I'm like, fine. Click 2, run back. Right? And we go break the border control, continue on, and he goes and egg boops me to archives. Or wait, sorry, he reses Tatu. So we Tatu swap, he gets some money, and he hops the border control. Click 3, we run back, and he eggs boops me to archives. And this is like, I think people talk about this being like the major misplay of this game, is where he like egg boosts me to archives. And I actually forgot about this. It was Sam Radiant, who was our table judge, who was watching the game, reminds us about the Sable trigger. So the Sable trigger gives me an extra click, and I get an extra click. And you can see Charlie like sitting back and be like, oh man, like at this moment right here, he's like, oh man, like I've just like really screwed up because I forgot about Sable. And now we like run the remote. He's only got 3 cards in hand. Firing Void doesn't make sense, so he lets me have it. I trash the Void. We steal the Nisei. But so like the thing is though, and a couple people have caught this, is I have wheels. So like this misplay did not mean I got to steal the Nisei. I was always stealing the Nisei. Because last click was always going to be wheels the remote. Even if we didn't get Sable, last click was going to be wheels the remote. And if I get voided, then I click the wheels. So now I clear the tag, I get 2 clicks, and then we can go spend one of those clicks to run back, trash, steal, and I have an extra click to do something else. So I was always stealing. What the Sable misplay did was it allowed me to keep the wheels. So in the world where Sable didn't happen, I would have wheels the remote, and he would have had to then trash 2 cards and pay 2 credits to make me use the wheels again. And if he didn't do that, then I would have stolen. So it was actually like I'm pretty sure the game would have gone the exact same way. Actually, they definitely would have gone the exact same way because the wheels didn't end up mattering, really. So that's what happened there. One of the things I found with Charlotte and Egg is that it's very easy to fall into the trap of must play for value, but it also doesn't present any threats, so the runner can just continue to set up. Yeah. Yeah, you gotta be like, you gotta be like really setting up something fierce. We had functionally 0 table audio. Yeah. Hey. Yeah. So I didn't use wheels at all this turn. But like I would have, right? So the error on archives was just like me keeping wheels if he was willing to trash 2 cards out of hand. Like there was still like a substantial cost there. Game goes on. He puts another ice on R&D, thinks twice about it, draws a card instead, installs Spin Doctor, plays Hansi Review, I think, or just discards cards. So I'm like, okay, wheels the Spin Doctor, make you shuffle, click for 4, go. And then we can just skip through the next couple turns because he goes install Spin Doctor, wheels the Spin Doctor, click for 4, go. And we can just click through the rest of this where he puts a single ice on a remote, which isn't really doing anything. And then he puts a second void on HQ. I go and run HQ. He triggers the void. And like the thing is, like, my game plan, once I saw that he was stacking ice on R&D, my game plan was immediately like, those agendas are eventually going to bleed into HQ. Because if I take my turns quickly, he's going to have to mandatory draw, and he's going to have to draw his cards, and like Cupulation's going to show up eventually, and we're going to like C3 out of HQ. And that should win me the game if we're like playing super slow, right? Like slow game wise, not speed. So my plan was like always just like let him ice R&D and I'll run HQ. He puts the void on HQ. and now we've got like maybe a real decision to make, but he's still got no remote. So on the very last turn of the game, like I can click the wheels, which means I have 5 clicks. So as long as I can get into HQ once, that should be good enough. So he does win on time. He wins on time 2-2 because he's higher seed. So at the very end of the game here, you can just do the math. Like he's got one agenda in score area. I have 1 agenda in my score area. He's got 5 cards in hand, 1 card left in R&D, no face down cards in archives, which means there's 8 agendas in the game and there's all agendas that are remaining. So there's 5 agendas in HQ, 1 agenda in R&D. That's when time is called. So we're just going through the motions at this point. He knows that I can figure this out. So we go ahead and pinhole archives, which forces him to ag boot me, which removes all uncertainty because now there's no ice on archives. So then I go run HQ, trigger the void, and then the 2 face downs go in archives. We go and run archives, and that's the end of that game. Yeah, there's that game. I don't know how Santa pushes a win from here on out. It'll take a while to... Exactly. Yeah. I think, like, that's the thing. Like, winning on time 2-2 was, like, his only out. Unless he can, like, get, like, 2 to 3 ice on the remote and get the void in there. Like, the void is also how he does it. But the thing is, like, I can tax the void because my breakers are efficient. So I can, like, run the remote, make you trigger void, run the remote, make you trigger void, and then like run the remote a 3rd time, maybe get egg booped, and then run the remote a 4th time. And if I get in that 4th time, steal, trash the void, like then you have to go and spin the void back. Maybe I've spent enough of my pieces, stuff like that. Like it's like not totally clear. At this point, Santa committed way too much ice on centrals and boops, right? There's no way out. Yeah, exactly. Like we gotta like we need to like get ice back onto centrals, which is not happening, or back onto a remote, which is not happening. There is 6 ice on R&D at the very end of the game. There's 5 unresed ice in the thimble rig, and there's 1 card left in R&D. Yeah. Decklist of the week update in 5 minutes. Oh, really? It's at this time on a Friday. Man, I've been streaming for a while. Jesus. Okay, one more game to go. Maybe this is the game that everybody is dying to see. Okay. Last game. Whew, almost there. I need everybody who's been like, first of all, if you've been here this whole time, like thanks for being here. Jesus. Like you've just been like listening to me talk for like 5 hours. But I need everybody to think back to all of the games against Lat that I've played this tournament. Okay? So that is round 6. No, what? Round 7 against the Inchling was the first round against Deep Dive Lat. But against Lat in general, right? In this game, we like drew the perfect storm. Drew our log jams, drew our wall-to-wall, got that going, won the game confidently. In round 10, we ran up against Jai, where I did not find wall-to-wall, did not get a taxing barrier going, and the fact that my servers were not taxing meant that drawing the Crisium Grid and drawing the Bile Vaults were not that great. Okay? Round 14, we're up against Saf, and this one was won because, again, my board wasn't that great. We didn't get wall-to-wall and a taxing barrier going, but luckily for me, this code gate situation got me through this game. Round 2 of the cut, Rotom. I draw my Mests, get my wall-to-wall going, don't find my logjam, don't find a scaling barrier. Okay? So the board is not going very well for me, and I won this game because he whiffed a deep dive. Okay? And like the game got really grindy at the end. Wasn't very clear who, like, he could have easily won this and I could have easily been out. Those were the games. Okay? So now going into round 7, against Deer, I had an opening hand, which is Spin Doctor, Maverick, wall to wall, 2 log jams. And I'm like, Spin Doctor, Maverick, wall to wall, 2 log jams. And I'm like, okay. I knew that I need to aggressively mulligan into sticking a wall to wall. And I don't know how D's going to approach this matchup. And this was an interesting little nugget here. Was that D? I think like, okay, well we'll get there. But I was like, okay, if I like we can like hold a couple axes, like Logjam's obviously weak early, but I can draw like maybe a Whoredom, maybe like any of my ice. I can draw any of my ice, and we can get our wall to wall going behind that, or we can like secure up centrals, get some cards in archives, and then get our Logjam in front of this wall to wall. So when I keep this hand, like I'm like quite like I'm not like it's not the perfect hand, because like Messna Chespo would be better. Like if I open with Messna Chespo and then draw into Logjam, that would be ideal. But like it's fine, right? So I Mando a hedge fund, and I'm like perfect. So we go. I don't need to like aggressively logjam right now, because if we aggressively logjam into a remote in front of a wall to wall and it gets poked, we don't really want to res that, but we're gonna have to. So I don't want to do that quite yet. So we go play the logjam. So we play the hedge fund. I put the logjam on R&D, advance, and D goes, and D like looked at my deck list and was very like seemed very fixated on the fact that I was playing logjams, and like there is Mests in here, so like I'm not totally sure if D was like that's a risk I'm willing to take, or that's a card I'm not going to respect, or is like I like we're just gonna like show me that you have it, or maybe it wasn't considered at all. I don't know, but D goes install Fermenter and quickly runs R&D, and I'm like, and this caught me by surprise a little bit, because like like slamming into Messna Chespo and losing your 4 credits is like really bad for most runners, right? So I was like, okay, like that's fine, because like there's 6 agendas in the deck. There's 38 cards in the deck, which is a 16% chance of stealing an agenda. And yeah. And the thing is, like, yeah, I guess we're just like not respecting Messna Chespo. Cause that like, you can bounce back as Shaper, like you can like lose your money and then go like take a credit creative, but like that's not good. But like maybe that's the risk that we decided to take. This was the little nugget that I realized at the end, was that I think like D had told me that they were always very nervous when they played against me, and I feel like I was given a lot like a lot of respect, whether like one way or another. So like I feel like D came into this matchup being like, this is a bad matchup. If we if we both play like reg games of Netrunner, I'm going to lose. So like we're gonna like take like some more like higher risk lines. Was the sense that I got out of the play that was made. And there was some like, I guess like there was some hints of that during our prior interactions that maybe I could have read into. And maybe that would have led me to mulliganing my hand, because like maybe I could have expected that D was going to play really aggressively and try to get early accesses, and I could have like punished that by drawing Mests. But unfortunately, what was top of mind at the time was that my late game against Lat is sus if I don't stick a wall to wall and advance scaling ice during the game. So that's what prompted me to keep the logjam opening hand. Lots of chat to catch up on. The game of the weekend. I'm pretending to be stressed out playing you just for this moment. Uh, every money card I have will be played, so it doesn't really matter if I lose money now. I didn't realize you were going for an aggressive strategy. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing is like, and I think this is something that's like difficult to kind of grasp. But a lot of the times against most corp decks, like losing 4 credits and going to 0, and like you lose a lot of tempo. But against a glaciary deck, a very slow deck like BTL, losing tempo is actually not that big of a deal. So D is totally right. Every money card I have will be played, so it doesn't really matter if I lose money now. And that's totally right. It's just like hard for people to actually go about implementing that kind of a strat, like that kind of a mindset, because it's just so counter to everything that you know about playing runner against most corp decks. It was watched live. Koga and Warlock watched it live. Nice. Yeah, no, missed you guys. Well, I mean, I'll definitely see you guys next year. Okay, so we make this early run, and we got a 16%, and I imagine most people who are watching this knows what happens this game. But we steal Basalt Spire, and I'm like, okay, like you can see my face, and I'm like, okay, like that's unfortunate because we are like playing a deep dive deck, so like every agenda that you find out of a single access makes the deep dives more lethal. But it's like, okay, like you steal that, I pick up Hedge Fund, fine, right? Like I get to replay the Hedge Fund, like my econ's gonna be good, all is good. And then D's like, okay, look at our cards, and we look at our cards a little more than I remember, but eventually we decide to run back into R&D, and I show the second card, and we're like, that's a second Basalt, and now I'm like, okay, really, like really, like the thing is, the first agenda is like unfortunate, but is fine because I at least pick up a Hedge Fund. The second agenda is just like straight up awful. For those interested in the stats, that's 16%, 40%. But like, yeah, the second agenda is just like, oh man, like, damn. Okay, it's fine. Let's show you the third card. And like at this point, like I'm cheering for D to see the third card because like the thing is like you see one, you see two. Like if the third card is also an agenda, like that is just like peak amazing game. Like, you know, like that's like damn, like get turn 1, install Fermenter, C3, like what is like, especially if it's SDS, is like the runner did exactly what they needed to do and nothing more, nothing less. Which is like, yeah, at that point I'm like, okay, like, you know, I kind of like, it would be really cool if this was SDS, was going through my mind. But obviously odds there are super low. That's 11% for the third access. So we go ahead, we start their turn, we get Tree Line. And now, like, I'm like, okay, we've just lost 2 agendas. This game is really, really hard now, but we just drew Tree Line. That's actually really good. So now the game goes, like the rest of this game is actually quite decent and is actually very comebackable. We play the Hedge Fund, right? We got the Mavris in our hand, so we put the Mavris on R&D, and we put the Logjam in a new remote. Because based off of D's first turn, we've installed Fermenter and ran R&D 3 times, so we're definitely going to rerun R&D, right? So D's going to rerun R&D, we're going to go no res, they're going to access a card, they're going to whiff the access, or maybe even better, we like trash an NGO front. And then we access the Mav, purge the Fermenter, trash the Mav, and now we've got an operation, an upgrade, and maybe the NGO, maybe not, but let's say it's not. Like, we've got an operation and an upgrade in the bin. So now next turn, I can go install Wall-to-Wall in the remote, advance the Logjam, get my BTL trigger, play the tree line. And we expend the tree line to advance the logjam on the remote. And now we've got 4 advancements on the logjam on the remote. And now we've got an ice in the bin as well. So now when we res logjam on the remote and on R&D, we get 4 advancement counters on the res. And now the res is good enough. And I'll talk about why I didn't res now, I guess. But like, because like the thing is, like, as I said, the game is all about like getting a taxing barrier on R&D in the remote. And if I res the logjam on turn 1, like, you're just playing too scared. If I have 10 credits, and if I spend what is effectively 4 of those credits resing this logjam, like, I would have gained 2 advancement counters, and it would have gone to strength 3. And then I go like install wall to wall, install logjam in the remote, advance that, and then we go and like poke that logjam, and we like res that logjam. And then that is also strength 3, and then we go and pinhole the wall to wall, and now I've got 2 strength 3 logjams on R&D in a remote. Like, that's really bad. Okay, so we can't do that. Like, obviously in hindsight, it's like, well, if you're gonna lose agendas, then like, you know, but if the tree line was there, if like the order of our cards in R&D went the other way, like this would have been like really good for me. So like I would stand by the decision that I made, not resing, just because like resing logjam to get like 1 or 2, getting like resing logjam for 2 counters is like not good enough, because the deck plays like the runner decks play like, I mean, this deck's playing Gauss, but also there's like Turbine in there, I think, and Propeller. So like you really have to boost that barrier past Propeller range to like make those runs not possible, or like taxing enough on those counters that like the Biovaults can do it for you. So yeah, so this was like when I drew Treeline, I was like, okay, like we actually have a way. This is actually like quite good. Like, yes, we've lost 6 points, but that's like, this is actually like recoverable. Play the hedge fund, put the Mavericks on R&D, ice R&D, and D goes ahead and runs R&D, tries to reach for the card themselves, and I show the SDS, we steal the SDS, that's the game. And there we go. That's Worlds, everybody. I got a lot of catching up to do, but this will be the last time. While I catch up on chat, please do ask any final questions. I do gotta call the stream pretty quickly, but while I'm here, you know, they really do. It's funny that the logjam res gets even worse after picking the hedge back up. Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, Alex, is like, if I'm not gonna res the first time and you steal an agenda, I'm definitely not resing the second time. But like that's just a given. I think like you could reasonably argue that I should have res the first time, because it's just like costs you 4 credits. But like the econ is just rough. Like if I spend the 4 credits to res and then we like Mando a Gov sub, it's like, man, like that sucks, right? Like what are we gonna do? Are we going to jam this wall to wall and like risk the new logjam on the remote to get poked, and now we're never playing this Gov sub? Or are we gonna try to like click up to play the Gov sub and then put the wall to wall? Like it's just like it's better to just not res that. I ended up thinking to myself that the Mav and R&D trash was a mistake in our game for that exact reason. Yes, Jai, it definitely was. It definitely was. Yeah, and unless you have like unless you have a virus in your deck that you care about, which I obviously don't know because we were in Swiss and you're the only one who knows that. But in the game against Jai, I put a Mavericks on R&D, basically bluffing that it was Chrysium Grid, and he goes and runs it, and thinking that it was a Chrysium Grid, turns out it was Mav. And what most people do is they're like, oh, it's Mav, trash, right? Unless it's like, maybe it's on R&D and you like want to allow the corp to draw it. But if it's not a card you access out of R&D, you always trash the Mav. And Jai, you're totally right. You should just leave the Mav there because it gives you an extra advancement counter on Logjam. Built Too Fast. Built Too Fast is, oh man, yeah. Anything you would change about either list outside the Echelon for one gun? The Echelon for one gun is like, is a good one. Anything else I would change? No, like I'm very happy with this corp list. As I said, like I expected there to be more Anarchs, and this deck is like really good against like Leech Anarchs. But as I said, like, but the thing is, like, at the end of the day, that's not what I like. That's not why I lost. Like, that's not why I didn't do better than I did. So, like, really, the things that could have been changed in the Corp deck that actually, like, the reality is that when you play at a large tournament like Worlds, like, matchup luck is a big factor. Like, you know, and we've all, like, everybody has said this about, like, every Worlds is just like, you need to be lucky to win Worlds, because like things just have to go your way. But like it's not just about like luck in the games; it's about luck in the draw as well. Luck in like the matchup draw. And like based off like you can only like there is a world because there was some Anarchs in the cut. Like Charlie was playing Freedom, Brandon was playing Hoshiko. Like there is a world where I just play against Anarchs and I like beat them and I feel really good about my deck building decisions and deck choices. But like, so you can only really analyze the situation based off of what I actually paired up against. And based off of what I actually paired up against, like games were hard, but I think I played really well in a lot of really tough situations that pulled things off. And obviously a lot of draws, a lot of deep dives had to go my way as well. Shout out to the game against Rotom. But like at the very end of the day, like the two results, like the two results that would have resulted in me potentially getting a better placement was the game against Arazan in round 12, where I was playing Ari. Where I was playing against Ari, but like I don't know, like if you show me Alex's runner deck card for card and be like, you're gonna beat this deck, or like that's your objective is to beat this deck, what do you do? And given that I'm playing this BTL, like what card changes would I make? Like nothing, right? Like I think that's just like that just kind of came down to my understanding of the matchup and my understanding of the pace of the game. That was like just slightly off in that game. And the other game that I could have like, the other game that I like, a potential card change could have changed the result of, is the game against Santa first round of the cut, where, now, obviously, I'll say the game against Arazan in round 12 is just like, that's a game where if I win, like, the winner of that game gets, like, top half of cut, which gives you side choice. But the thing is, like, it's still, like, you're not totally sure what side choice will actually get you, right? Because that's still kind of up to the luck of the matchups, and how the rest of the top 16 shapes out. So it's not totally clear what that would have gotten me. But that is, at the very least, like, might have gotten me a better round 1 matchup in the cut. The game against Nick Ride, lost in round 13. There's nothing I could have done to win that game. Because as I said, like I was always playing this lat deck, and any changes to this lat deck would not have won me that game. But the game against Charlie round 1 of the cut, where I got taxed out by sentries, was like I think we could have easily, like if I put more thought and testing time into my lat deck, I could have gotten to the conclusion of cut a Revolver for an Entangler, play an Echelon, which means I have to find an extra slot somewhere, which is a lot easier said than done, but I think I could very easily get there. And that deck change, I think, could have very possibly changed that result. Yeah. That's my thoughts about deck changes. But like as I said, like the preparing for this year's Worlds was all about finding a good corp. For me, at least, like this runner had done me so well. The core of the cards are just like speak to me really well, and I like know the deck inside and out. I know what it's capable of. I love how it plays. It's just really fun to play. So my focus was very, very much largely on corp. There was a piece of advice that Eric gave me when playing you that I took to heart. Unironically, 2 steps. Play perfectly. That doesn't mean strategy-wise, but you need to eliminate unforced errors. No missed triggers. No forgetting to use Paladin. Remembering your opponent's ID strategy at all times. Can't go, oh, I forgot about the border control. 2, find lines that deviate from established strategy / have variance. Yeah, that especially number 2. Number 2 is true. Like, I mean, this is like the way that I like approach playing Netrunner is I work off the assumption that my opponent is playing optimally. So I will make plays based off of those assumptions that I make. So like we saw that with the Tatu Bola install against Zinchling, where I was like, that should be Tatu. Because if that was Drafter, like I would be screwed, right? Or if like the ice on R&D was an ablative, then I would have been screwed. Like the thing is, nobody would do this, right? But if Zinchling's turn 1 was install Rashida, Asa to install Pulse, and then put an ablative on R&D, which like to those who aren't following means we're putting a non-real end the run in front of Rashida and a real end the run on R&D turn 1. Like if he did that, like way later in the game, I took that information, made an assumption, made a play based off of it, and I would have gotten wrecked. The problem with that, though, is that the theory is that if I assume that you play perfectly, or like you make correct value judgments, and I make my plays based off those value judgments, if you don't make correct value judgments, like the thing is like we can disagree about like what is best, right? But like this example about like a blade of R&D pulse on the remote is like I think we can all agree that putting an ablative on in front of the Rashida is always better than putting a pulse in front of the Rashida turn 1, right? So like the theory is that if you make plays that are suboptimal and I might lose to them, like in the long run in like a vast majority, in like a long many number of games, like I will come out on top because you will be making these plays that are suboptimal. And suboptimal plays will sometimes get me. But the thing is, a lot of the times, like I don't make game-changing decisions off of every assumption, right? So like sometimes like you might do something that is suboptimal that I actually don't notice, or if I notice it, it's not something that I'm going to actually make a decision based off of. And in those situations, you will have just made a suboptimal decision. So yeah, that's like a cool little push and pull of playing Netrunner, really. Yeah, Jai, the annoying part was I passed over Christian on the trick shot access thinking I'd rather cup the installed one, and lo and behold, it's a Mav. Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. Is there any real risk of them later rezzing for 1 net, especially in such a rich and slow deck? Yeah, potentially. Like, if we're trying to like deep dive and I have a ton of money, yeah, there definitely is that risk. I'm confident if Eric didn't say that to me, I wouldn't have run R&D. I had to white blade it in my gamers as well. The Lat Core, in my opinion, doesn't have any hyper losing matchups. Exactly. The Asa group deck Logic Bomb brought, I wonder if people practiced and knew the matchup if the Lat players can beat it. It's a really well built deck. It's a really well thought out deck. So like really props to them for doing what they did and bringing like a great corp deck and getting really good results across the team. There's a video on a different game called Yomi about the concept of valuation. It basically says that to make good bluffs, you have to know the optimal play in the first place. Yeah. So improving your valuation based ability to make and predict optimal plays is important to even start making bluffs. Yeah, that's very cool. This was something that I was going to mention during this video at some point. Is like, this is something my soccer coach said to me. My soccer coach said this to like my soccer team when I was playing youth soccer. I mean, I still play soccer now, but my soccer coach said this, and it's something that really rang in my head. And the thing he said was, it's not about the results, about the performance. And in the soccer sense, it was like, he's like, I don't care if we win the game. I don't care if we win the tournament. I don't care if we get smoked. Like, if you perform well, like, that's what's important. Like, the results will come, but like, don't worry about the results. Just worry about the performance. And that's something that I like when I play Netrunner, like when I like going through law school, like, because obviously I'm gonna like hopefully be a litigator, and like that's like an adversarial process. And like in Netrunner as well, it's just like, don't worry about the result, worry about the performance. And that's why I'm like, I think a lot of people are like, man, like that sucks, like losing like that. And like, you know, getting like losing a jet, like R&D giving up on you. But it's like, I don't like think like, it doesn't like, that doesn't affect me that much. Because like, I'm actually really happy and like really proud about how I played in the tournament. There was like a lot of really, really strong players playing really, really strong decks. And the field was really, really tough. And there was a lot of games that I feel like I really had to be at the very top of my game to win. And that's like what I'm like most happy about. So yeah, like it was such a good event. And yeah, I just like see like I got to meet like so many great people. I want to give a shout out to XDG. XDG was paired against me in the last round of Swiss in round 14. And he was like, he basically had certain goals in the tournament, and he had way exceeded those goals. And he was just like, there was still a round to go. And if he won that round, he would have made top half of cut. Okay? Like, XDG ended up losing to... Basically, what happened in the last round was I was paired against XDG, and then the round got repaired. And XDG ended up getting paired against Tuno, and Tuno won. And Tuno ended up making cut. And XDG lost the last round, and ended up finishing, like, 20th? 19th, right? And if XDG won in the last round, he would go to 31 points, and he would have finished... 8th in the top, like right in the top half of the cut. And like he was doing really, really well. And going into that round, like he like paired against me, and he was like just like crying tears of happiness, and like very happy, very emotional. And that was just like, that was like, it was just really touching. And it was like really, like it made me like, I was like, he was gonna make me cry, because he was just so happy to be there, to like be doing as well as he was. And he was like, I don't care about like, I don't care how the last round goes, I don't care if I make the cut or not, like we're doing, like the fact that I'm here, the fact that we're like sitting at this table, and the fact that the day has gone so well was just like made him like very, very happy. And I was like, I just love that. And yeah, it makes me like, there's not like, we're in person, like going out to like large in-person events and like being there and experiencing stuff like this, and like seeing people, you know, seeing people do well and just like be happy with like hanging out with friends and stuff is like really, really amazing. Want to share what flavor of litigation you're interested in? I'm going to start with criminal and family, which is like the two main areas of litigation. So I'm gonna start in like doing criminal law and family law, and then we'll kind of see where that takes us. Yeah, that's where my like job is gonna be once I graduate. So that's what I'll be doing for at least my first year after graduating. Was it last round of day one or last round of the entire Swiss? Last round of entire Swiss. This was round 14. I remember Andre told the story too. Oh, really? Andre was yeah, man, I'll hear like I would like if you have a timestamp, like if you have a timestamp like in mind, don't go looking for it for me. But like if you have a timestamp handy, like I would go and watch that and just like listen to Andre's version, like retelling of this, because that's like those stories are like what make this community amazing. And like there's like tons of stories as well where it's like people who didn't do as well as they had hoped to, and like people like supporting each other and that kind of stuff. It's like all like amazing as well. He grinded so hard for Worlds, you have no idea. Yeah, he was telling me like he said that he took 2 months off or like a month off or something like that, and he just like was grinding really hard, and like all of that work paid off, and like he like exceeded his expectations of placement. And yeah, it's so heartwarming to like hear about that. I was on a cruise before Worlds, and then that compared to the weekend. Yeah. Andre's chapters might be able to find it. He was talking about XGG's constant one-upping of his own goals. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Paired into me, repaired into Tuno. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, gonna go back and catch up on the rest of the post-Worlds content this weekend. It's been amazing. Yeah, no, and like Jai, like another person too. Like, I had not met Jai before. Getting to meet Jai was amazing. Like getting to meet Jai, XDG. I mean, I've met XDG before, but like that moment with XDG, like meeting Rotom, getting to play many games with Rotom was like a highlight. Netrunner Guess Who, Crokinole, like yeah, and like the event was like super well run as well. Jammed a ton with XG for a lot of his world pep. Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, great to have met you, everyone else, of course. I'm okay. We have definitely broken a record for my longest stream. But this has been so much fun. Thank you to everybody who could make Worlds happen. Thanks for all of you for joining along on this recap. Yeah, if you're here watching the whole thing, like, dang, thank you. Seriously, I'm just like sitting here and talking for the last 5 hours now. But yeah, thanks for joining me. And yeah, until the next one, really. Worlds next year for sure, but you know, we'll see if hopefully I'll stream at some point, but no promises. I mean, I still got a semester of law school left, and some things that I am pretty busy about doing. So yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. And we'll